The storm raged about Dragonstone's jagged-toothed keep, shearing rain across black basalt, like 1,000 thrown knives. Lord Eddard Stark stood beneath the portcullis where ancient Valyrian faces scowled from the stone, cloaked in sodden wolf grey. Wind howled through the murder holes, carrying the briny tang of shipwrecks and old grief. The Northman's hair, dark as wet bark, clung to his brow, but his eyes never wavered from the swaddled bundle presented to him by Sir Willem Darry. Within the cloth lay a single egg, the color of embers and morning. Scales of charcoal trimmed with veins of sullen crimson, warm to the touch despite the storm's chill. Ned's gauntleted fingers closed around the dragon's unborn heart, and he felt it pulse, a shiver that seemed to echo the hammer blows of his own conscience. Somewhere within the keep's shadowed corridors, infant cries rose and fell, muffled by thick stone walls and the conspiratorial hush of men who served the dead House Targaryen. He heard none of it now. He heard only the wind, the sea, and the endless refrain of duty that had guided him since the first direwolf banner rose over Winterfell. When the exchange had been proposed, Jon Snow for a dragon egg, Ned had thought it madness. Yet the memory of Lyanna's last fevered whisper, "Promise me, Ned," had burrowed deep. Promise me, yes. And what was a promise, if not a weight to bear until it forged a man into something harder than iron? The child would know love in exile, far from Robert's vengeful reach. The North would gain a spark of fire, a weapon older than thrones, older than oaths. Sir Willem's lantern trembled in his arthritic grip as he spoke. "The babe will sail at dawn, my lord. A fast cog for Braavos, then on to Pentos. Illyrio Mopatis will see to his raising. Books, tutors, and the coin to keep him in comfort." Willem paused, studying the lines carved across Ned's face. "We will not speak his name again." Ned inclined his head. Words failed him. He traced the curve of the egg, felt scales catch on his leather palm. A dragon, unborn. Jon's half-brother, in a manner of speaking. Born of smoke rather than blood. The notion tasted of wildfire and betrayal. He had told Catelyn that the boy was his bastard, and that the shame was his alone. Now the shame would sail across the narrow sea, wearing the name Snow no longer. Outside the gate, Ned's companions awaited. Howland Reed in cloak of mottled reed green, silent as a marsh shadow, and Sir Jorah Mormont, newly sworn to the north to cleanse his family's stain. They stood beside hardy northern Garrons, manes plastered flat with rain. In a wicker cage, ghostly gray pups whimpered. Direwolf litter bound for Winterfell. Tokens for Bran and the girls. The sight of them tightened Ned's throat. These living symbols of the North would greet the dragon egg in his saddlebags. Ice lying down with fire. They rode before first light, slipping past shattered siege towers and the anchored hulks left behind by Stannis Baratheon's blockade. With each league north, Ned felt the chill deepen. Felt the egg thrum hotter against his flank, as though the creature within sensed the snows it must fight to survive. He dreamt, as he rarely allowed himself, of wings unfolding above white fields, the roar of living flame driving back winter's darkness. In such dreams, Jon Snow stood upon those wings, silver hair whipped by wind, yet when Ned reached for the boy his sun dissolved into mist. At Bitterbridge they rested, and there the whispers began. A Northman rumored to bear a dragon's egg, a pack of pups with eyes like pale moons. Reed men glimpsed by candlelight, their gait fluid as river reeds. Gold cloaks watched from wine shops. Sel's words followed at a distance. Ned kept to the road's hard miles, fed the horses little, and the men less talk, and when he slept, his sword ice lay naked beside him. The neck welcomed them with strangling mists and cold humors that settled in Ned's lungs. Howland guided them through secret causeways snaking the mere. By moonlight, Crannogman rode Ned's party past dream rushes and barrow mounds, where the first men rested beneath their swords. Ned felt the old god's eyes upon him. Silent, entreating, perhaps condemning, he placed the egg upon a mossy stone when they reached Greywater Watch, letting its heat seep into the damp air, while Howland's kin chanted in tongues forgotten by the Andal conquerors. The crannogmen bowed to the egg as though it were a child of their own, promising reeds for wings, water for fire, so the ancient balance might stand. By the time Winterfell's granite towers bled into view, summer was already dying, and ravens carried news of faraway quarrels, Balon Greyjoy's mutterings, whispers of cell sails massing in Essos, tales of golden dragons minted anew in the free cities. Ned dismounted before the gatehouse, worn by miles and memory. Maester Luwin hurried forth, gray ribbon flapping from his staff, and his expression crumpled in victory and alarm at the sight of the egg. Inside the Godswood, Ned knelt before the heart tree. Blood-red leaves drifted about him, catching on his cloak like fallen promises. He laid the egg in the crook of the weirwood's roots, where the ground steamed around the blackened shell. Sap bled crimson down white bark, pooling like tears at the egg's base. Ned closed his eyes, and in the hush between heartbeats, he felt two lives diverge. Jones, sailing into exile, and the dragonlings, beating hot here beneath the old god's gaze. Duty and hope, parted as flesh and bone. Catelyn watched from the ridgepole of the great keep, stoic, distant, the wind teasing auburn strands from her widow's braid. She had borne the shame of Ned's bastard in silence. Now shame was replaced by something stranger. Fear, perhaps, of the fiery power her husband courted. Yet she descended the steps with measured grace and took Ned's hand in hers. Fingers entwined. They felt the heat rising from the heart tree, as though a hearth had been kindled beneath the world. Winterfell changed in small ways first. Fires banked hotter. Smoke rose thick from the inner forges. The direwolf pups grew swift and broad-chested. Their howls, when they played beneath the battlements, sent ravens thundering skyward. Bran took to climbing higher, swearing he could feel warm updrafts curling above the rookery. Arya's practiced swords spark-kissed when they struck, and the smiths complained of iron stained cherry red longer than it should. On the first night of the harvest feast, Ned carried the egg into the great hall. A hush fell as he placed it upon a bed of peat in the hearth's heart. Flames licked about the shell, green tongues of pyre-kissed wood rising in twisting banners. Music faltered. Every lord and smallfolk watched, breathless, while embers spiraled toward the rafters. Then came the crack. A hairline splinter, bright as lightning, crawling across the egg's surface. Again the shell shifted, scales falling like dying stars into the coals. A screech knifed the air. Shrill, hungry, triumphant. The hatchling burst forth in a gout of sparks, wings slick with afterbirth, talons as clear as crystal claws, eyes molten gold. It flapped once, twice, spattering cinder and ash across the rushes, then settled upon Ned's gloved forearm, steam curling from its teardrop nostrils. Gasps mingled with prayers. Some reached for daggers, others crossed sigils over their breasts. The ancient banners of the north hung motionless in reverent awe. Ned's voice carried steady through the silence. "Behold Winterflame," he proclaimed, naming the creature for the impossible marriage of seasons. The dragon answered with a coughing roar, sparks flickering along its tongue. In that moment, the north accepted a new symbol stitched beside the direwolf. A crimson ember cradled by white teeth. Ravens carried tidings south of a Stark lord with fire at his command. Lord Tywin Lannister paused over his goblet, calculating. Queen Cersei's lips thinned. King Robert laughed, drunk on autumn wine but sharp enough to send spies north. Far across the sea, Magister Illyrio received scrolls, and smiled at the boy he was raising. No bastard now, but a prince in all but name, hair as dark as Ned's, quiet, watchful. He spoke the child's new name in the Braavosi tongue, Yonos Targaryen. Seasons turned. Winterflame grew, devouring whole goats, then cattle, forging a wake of glassy snow behind its fiery breath. Its scales darkened from ember to forged iron red, and the children rode upon its back in secret drills across the Wolfswood. Bran clung to spines, laughing above the canopy. Robb urged the dragon higher with the reckless thrill of youth. Sansa sang ballads of ancient Valyria, while Arya coaxed the beast into barrel rolls that left her whooping with glee. Under Maester Luwin's quill, new words were set to parchment. Dracarys and Valar Morghulis, lessons of tongue and fire. Yet dragons breed fear as surely as they breed power. House Bolton whispered of blasphemy. House Karstark shivered at nightly flames curling above the godswood. A call went out to the Night's Watch. Wildlings reported lights beyond the wall, a black shadow circling the moon. Ned rode to Castle Black with Winterflame winging overhead, Jon's absence gnawing at him like cold in his marrow. Lord Commander Corgyle bowed stiffly when the dragon descended, its tail smashing crenellations to rubble. Between them, they spoke of the dead stirring in the haunted forest, and of ancient weapons forged of dragon glass. In the crypts below Winterfell, where kings of winter slept beneath stone direwolves, Ned sought counsel with the ghosts. Lyanna's statue stood serene, roses of winter-white marble lying frozen at her feet. Ned knelt, confessing his trade, his lingering guilt. A single tear stained the dust on his glove. The dragon, now half again a warhorse, lay curled at the stair's mouth, the tips of its wings flickering with sleep fire. Even in slumber it guarded the secret of Jon's parentage, though it scarcely knew it, though Jon himself would not learn it for years yet to come. Catelyn joined him there, candle trembling in her grasp. She spoke of letters from Riverrun, of Baratheon disquiet, of Lysa's fears and Aeron illness. Ned listened, his shadow long across the crypt stones. The weight of oaths pressed upon his shoulders. Oaths to a sister, to a realm, to a dragon unborn that was now unfurling might across sky and snowscape. He wondered if any man might bear so many promises and remain unbroken. Snow fell outside in lazy sheets, but within the keep the hearths burned day and night, fed by a steady supply of pine and pitch. Winterfell became a beacon, its plume of smoke visible for leagues. Farmers claimed the north seemed warmer in its radius, as though the dragon's heart radiated through stone into soil. Crops ripened late into frost, and the small folk praised the Stark Lord who had stolen fire from the south. Yet omens abounded. A weirwood south of Moat Cailin wept sap that burst into flame upon the snow. Fishermen on the shivering sea reported schools of red-scaled fish, boiling to the surface, cooked alive in waters suddenly hot. And at Dragonstone, watchers on the ramparts swore they saw a lone boy, with a dire wolf sigil on his cloak, staring seaward as though waiting for a ship that would never return him home. His guardian, soft-voiced Magister Illyrio, spoke to him of homecomings and crowns, of debts paid in fire. When spring's first thaw came, Ser Jorah led a column of horse south to barter with the Riverlords for grain and oaths. He bore a banner newly stitched, the leaping direwolf argent on a field of ash red, a single ember where the heart should be. They met House Blackwood at Raventree, where crows screeched warnings from eaves, black as barley char. Lord Tito's Blackwood, who loved his ancient gods, bent the knee after seeing Winterflame wheel overhead, its scream scattering half the ravens into the sky. Other houses followed. Those who hesitated felt the heat of flame hissing past their gables at midnight. None died, but the message seared into oak and memory alike. King Robert summoned Ned to King's Landing at last. The Raven's parchment stank of wine, grief, and fear. It demanded answers and offered friendship, Robert's blunt promise of a warm place at his side, so long as that blasted worm came south for the realm's defense. Catelyn read the words aloud in the solar, voice tight. Ned paced among wolfskins and maps, hand straying unconsciously to the pommel of ice. He pictured Robert's court. Littlefinger's smirk, Varys' whispers, Cersei's green and gold disdain. He pictured Winterflame chained in the Red Keep's dry pits, lion banners drooping above its fury. He chose instead to answer with silence. Ravens flew, but each bore only a scrap of gray fur. No pledge, no words. Far north, the wall stood silent. Yet at night, Ned heard the dragon's call echo across plains, answered by something vast and mournful beyond the frozen heights. In frozen dreams, he saw figures of blue ice marching, their swords whispering frost songs. A red flame wheeled overhead, scattering them like sparks across night's anvil. Years turned. Jon grew tall in Pentos, schooled by Bravusi masters and fire priests alike. He learned to dance with blades curved like smiles, and to speak the secret languages of flames. By the time he reached his 15th name day, Whispers called him the Black Dragon. Dark hair, violet eyes earned through tinctures poured nightly over his pupils. Skin kissed by Pentashi's sun, yet pale at his heart. He read letters from a man who signed only E, tales of a wolf-harried north kept warm by fire. In those letters lay half-truths and yearning, enough to bind longing tighter than steel. Illyrio's manse glowed with saffron-scented braziers, the day a silver-haired girl arrived, shy and tremulous, escorted by red priests bearing scrolls of prophecy. She was Daenerys Stormborn, last name Targaryen, except perhaps for the boy watching from the balcony. Their eyes met over a sea of perfumed courtiers, and a hush fell ragged as torn silk. Destiny craned its neck then, like a just-hatched dragon smelling first ash. Back in Winterfell, Winterflame eclipsed the moon as it reached full growth. Wings wide enough to shadow half the courtyard, flame hot enough to melt arrowheads mid-flight. Ned stood upon the battlements, robed in furs that smelled faintly of smoke. He watched children grown into men and women. Robb, broad-shouldered lord in all but name. Sansa, statuesque with Tully poise yet northern steel. Arya, quick as a spark in dry tinder. Bran, a dreamer of sky. Rickon, wild as his direwolf. Beneath them unfurled a realm on the brink of transformation. The old gods rustled through the weirwoods. The new gods flickered nervous candlelight in sept and chapel. And from east and south came rumors of crowns. One forged of black dragon bone for a forgotten exile. One of antler and gold for a king grown weary of fear. And one unseen, cold as death, for the shadow stirring beyond the wall. They converged upon a single truth. Fire, like wolves, runs in packs, and sooner or later every hatchling must choose what to burn, and whom to spare. Ned Stark breathed the chill night, felt Winterflame coil atop the gatehouse behind him. Snow hissed against the dragon's scales, vaporizing with soft sighs. In a courtyard lit by orange glow, his people danced the harvest dance, spinning beneath banners of wolf and fire. He thought of Jon. No, Janos. Far away, thought of a promise made to a dying sister, and wondered if promises, like eggs, hatched into fates no man could break. The dragon shifted, great wings rustling like war banners. Ned closed his eyes. In the dark behind them, far off in exiled seas, another dragon stirred within a boy's heart, dreaming of snowfields and a father's face he barely remembered. Storms gathered, east and north alike, and in their thunder Ned heard a single beating of twin hearts, one of blood, one of flame, drawing slowly, inexorably toward each other, as if the world itself were forging them into a blade destined to cleave dawn from dusk. Ka. Moonlight streamed through thin lace curtains embroidered with the many-handed forks of House Mopatis, silvering the marbled floor of the guest wing and turning the balustrades into gleaming bones. Yet Janos could not sleep. He paced barefoot, sword belt swinging loose on sweat-damp linens, the blade Illyrio had gifted him. Braavosi steel, tempered, narrow and light, casting a pale line behind each step. Outside, the courtyards of Pentos breathed warm night, jasmine twining with the brine wafting from the purple harbor. Braziers burned low. Musicians had long ceased their languid cittern plucking. All the world seemed hushed, as if poised on the edge of some vast exhalation. He paused at the terrace and set both hands upon the carved rail. Southward, the sea painted black glass ripples beneath a quarter moon. Lantern barges bobbed at anchor while wine-dazed revelers laughed far below, their voices scattering like beads among the cobbles. Janos paid them little heed. His thoughts circled 2 points, one in the west, burning over snowbound forests, the other sleeping in a room, a corridor away. Daenerys. She had arrived 8 days past, clad in a traveling cloak of sky-blue Myrish silk, too large for her narrow shoulders. Her brother Viserys swaggered at her side, every inch the would-be king. All resentful angles and brittle pride. But it was the girl's eyes that arrested Janos. Lilac so soft they seemed on the verge of tears even when she smiled. He knew that color only from Illyria's library scrolls. Valyrian eyes, ancient as wildfire. In them he felt a tug, something like homesickness. though for what home he could not say. She moved like someone accustomed to shrinking. Shoulders tucked, steps measured, voice a feather slip. Yet when she spoke of dragons, and she did, in hushed bursts when Viserys' attention wandered, her words glowed red at the edges. Illyrio had orchestrated their meeting with the care of a jeweler arranging solstice gems. The Magister kept to the fringes of their conversation, plump hands folded across his chest, face a mask of benevolence. But Janos noticed how each time Daenerys glanced at him, Illyrio's lips twitched as though counting unseen coins. The Magister's whispers had grown more insistent of late. Talk of sellsword captains eager for gold, of Dothraki horselords thirsting for conquest, of thrones left poorly guarded by fat kings who hunted more than they ruled. And he spoke of the North, always the North, a land where rumors told of a living dragon grown nearly full, and the Stark who had dared hatch it. He never named Ned Stark openly in Janos' presence, but every hint pricked like a needle. Janos turned from the terrace, restless. Crossing the mosaic floor, a swirl of tiny tiles depicting the doom of Valyria. He reached the small table where 2 letters lay unrolled beside a half-empty goblet. One letter bore Illyrio's silk-heavy seal, arrangements for the morrow's ride to the Royne Gate, where Viserys would curry favor with Pentoshi ship captains. The other came from the hand that signed only E. Its parchment smelled faintly of pine and smoke. No wax, no sigil, only ink dark as a raven's wing. Your blood is not a chain, only a path you may follow or forsake. Winters deepen, fires grow. Remember the quiet in your heart when all else is noise. There was more, but those lines he had reread until they etched behind his eyelids. He had no reply to send. Illyrio's men inspected every bird and scroll, and the Magister's approval was a cloak Janos dared not shed yet. Still, the letters arrived. Sometimes he dreamt of a gray-cloaked figure placing them on his bedside table while he slept. He poured the last of the wine into the goblet and drank. Its dryness clung to his tongue like dust. Beyond the door, the corridor lay dim save for candle nubs sputtering in niches. He stepped out, barefoot pads silent on carnelian rugs. 2 unsullied guards at Daenerys' chamber bowed heads, laced with silver helmets, but did not bar his way. They knew him. The Black Dragon some called. Though not to his face, and Illyria's wishes were clear. Janos was free to walk where he would, but he did not enter. Instead he laid his palm upon the warm wood, feeling the grain like lines on an unread map. A voice inside, soft, tremulous, recited high Valyrian verse. No answer to Viserys' snore then. The brother had taken apartments across the courtyard to practice speeches before polished bronze mirrors. Daenerys spoke alone, reading aloud to herself. A flicker of candlelight lit the gap beneath the door, making tiny dragons dance on the stone. Janos drew breath. He thought of Winterflame, of early dawn in the Wolfswood when he and Robb had hidden in frost-hushed trees, waiting for the beast to swoop. Of the heat beating down upon snow like a smith's hammer. He thought of a promise he sensed, but could not name. Then he lifted his hand and walked away. At dawn, the household roused to commotion. Viserys' voice shot through the courtyard like an ill-tuned horn. My crown," he barked, demanding breakfast, transport, deference. Servants scurried, Illyrio soothed. Janos remained in the shadows of an orange tree, arms folded, observing. Daenerys emerged behind her brother, face composed yet pale. When her gaze met Janos, something unspoken rippled between them. Shared weariness perhaps, or a question that neither dared shape. The ride to the Royne Gate proved slow under Pentos' tangle of bridges. Fishmongers lifted baskets of silver squirmers. Cloth dyers emptied vats, staining runoff purple. At the harbor, an honor guard waited. Lysine sellswords in sea-green silk, Free Navy's officers polishing gilded helms. Viserys preened under their half-interest, extolling his lineage. But the captain's eyes slid toward Janos when he spoke. The boy carried himself with a Northman's stillness, yet behind his quiet, they sensed something the world had almost forgotten. Some looked skyward as if expecting wings. Later, as the procession wound homeward, Janos drew alongside Daenerys. Their horses, hers a creamy palfrey, his a rangy sand runner, kept an easy pace. Seabirds wheeled overhead, crying through the sharp sunlight. Do you miss it? She asked without preamble. Miss what? Your home. She worried the reins. You were born in Westeros, were you not? I was. Though I remember little. Then so. Memories can be echoes, she said. My brother speaks of Dragonstone, of the Red Keep, yet I have no feel for them. Only dust fills the gaps. Janos studied her profile. Fine-boned, a strand of hair shining like melted silver where the sun caught it. I am not certain what I miss, he admitted. There is snow, I recall, and pines that sing in the wind. And a smell, wood smoke and something wild. Dragons? She smiled, tentative. He returned the smile. Perhaps. A silence followed in which hoofbeats echoed off marble walls. When they turned a corner near the Bridge of Pale Maidens, Daenerys leaned closer. I dream of them, she whispered. Scales like beaten brass, wings that blot out stars. They circle me in darkness, not menacing, watching. My brother says the blood of the dragon whispers to the worthy. Does he? Janos murmured, mindful of the guards ahead. Yes. He says we will wake them, reclaim them, then take back what was stolen. Janos thought of Winterflame, of warmth radiating through northern stone, of children riding high over the Wolfswood. Dragons, he said slowly, are not stolen goods. They choose where to belong. Then, Daenerys' eyes widened, but Viserys hollered behind them, urging haste. Conversation died. Yet that night, Janos found a tiny scrap of parchment slipped beneath his door. If dragons choose, might they choose us? Idi. He burned it, then lay awake, the words dancing in embers long after the fire died. In Winterfell, spring struggled beneath a crust of late snow. A hush hung over the keep, weightier than any winter silence. The hush of waiting. Smiths rang anvils by day, forging donkey haunch ingots of obsidian shipped from the fingers. By twilight, Ser Jorah drilled new levees. At night, the dragon's roars rolled across courtyards, fusing with the wolves' chorus until not even the oldest men could recall what the north had sounded like before fire joined ice. Maester Luwin had converted an entire turret into a rookery for crows trained to withstand heat. Feathered survivors strutted among smoldering perches, while apprentices catalogued their adaptation. Feathers singed at tips, yet flight unimpaired. The Maester recorded observations. Heat tolerance increasing in local fauna. Dragon proximity accelerating metabolism. Further study warranted. Export to Citadel impossible. Under present crown. Scrutiny. He salted the scrolls with ciphers only Archmaester Marwyn might unravel. Yet Luwin's letters carried weight of another kind. News. Ravens arrived daily from White Harbor, from Moat Cailin, from Bear Island, each bearing reports of restless banners. Lord Bolton amassed men under pretext of a white raid. The Karstarks cut less timber than usual, conserving forests as if expecting siege. And at the wall, Lord Commander Corgyle wrote of silent woods and tracks too deep to be mere elk. Ned read each report in his solar, flanked by tapestries showing the long night. Winterflame coiled outside the arrow slit, listening. The creature had grown monstrous, neck thick as a ship's mast, talons gouging trenches through flagstones. Smoke drifted from its jaws in lazy plumes. When Ned stepped near, the dragon's massive head lowered, nuzzling his palm with surprising gentleness. He wondered if some fragment of Jon's spirit lived inside that furnace, as if by exchanging child for egg, he had bound their fates in ways neither sorcery nor steel could sever. Catelyn entered, boots soft upon the rushes. Her cheeks were wind-kissed from overseeing barley stores. She paused as the dragon's eye pivoted toward her, molten gold flecked with ruby. Despite months of exposure, she still swallowed each time the beast noticed her. Another raven from King's Landing, she said, handing the scroll. Ned skimmed. Robert's hand. Thick strokes, wine stains. Words slurred. Old friend. Ride south, counsel needed. Show of trust, realm's sake. A separate line in another script. Thin, precise. Carried the royal seal. Lord Eddard Stark is commanded by his grace to deliver himself and his dragon to the capital within the month. Ned exhaled. They will not cease. No. Catelyn folded arms, fingers white at the knuckles. But perhaps you must answer. And bring Winterflame into that nest of vipers. Better we guide the vipers' fangs than wait for them to bite unseen, she said. If Robert demands proof of loyalty, refusal may brand us traitors. Ned stared at torchlight rippling across scaly hide. If I go, you must stay. Winterfell cannot stand leaderless. Then, I have kept hearth before, she reminded. He nodded, though his eyes lingered on the dragon. It will not follow me if I leave it here. Catelyn set her hand atop his. You once told me a direwolf and dragon might share a den. Let the realm believe the dragon is yours alone. You need not parade it before courtiers to prove its fire. Ned closed the letter. Far off, the wind keened through battlements. And if Robert marches, then he marches north into snow, she said softly, where your dragon waits. They exchanged no further words on that matter. Yet Catelyn found herself watching the horizon for ravens, half hoping the next would bear the king's seal sealed shut for good. Summer rains lashed the King's Road 2 weeks later when a lone courier arrived at Winterfell's gate. Half frozen and unhorsed, Bolton men had waylaid him near the last river. Only a swift dive into icy water had saved his skin. He carried a parchment bearing the direwolf of House Stark, and a sigil few recognized, an ember on a white field. He'd been riding from River Run, from Catelyn's brother Edmure. But the letter within came not from Tully hands. Instead, spidery script unrolled itself. They gather in the east. A khalasar like blood on sand, led by horselord called Drogo. Illyrio sets his pieces. One is your son. The other is dragon's daughter. Wedding soon. When seas boil, mountains bleed. Send word. No signature. Only a crude drawing of a spider curled in a web. Ned held it above the hearth where flame licked close. He did not burn it. Instead, he pressed it to his breast, feeling heartbeats thud through dried ink. Then he called for Maester Luwin and Howland Reed, who had remained as counselor, and for Ser Jorah. They gathered beneath vaulted rafters while Winterflame's shadow slid across the slitted windows. When Illyrio moves, Ned said, the game quickens. Wedding a Targaryen to a Khal is bold. Jorah muttered, voice gruff. 100,000 riders cannot cross the narrow sea unless ships carry them. But gold greases keels. Luwin adjusted his chain. The crown lacks coin to bribe every captain, yet a dragon returns value beyond weight in gold. Ned glanced at Jorah. You know Pentos better than any. Tell me of Drogo. Tall as a tower, long braid never cut, undefeated. Rides swift, fights brutal. But Dothraki despise water. Crossing the sea is their nightmare. Menin. They may cross if given cause, Ned said, thinking of Jon's face. No, Janos, looking upon the silver sands. Family is cause enough. Howland stirred, reedy voice whispering. The old songs in the neck speak of fire across water. When dragons fly, rivers steam. Ned felt the letters wait again. Then we must keep the waters wide, at least until allies gather. Luwin lowered his voice. Allies may be wary of dragons. Jorah's eyes traveled upward to the faint smoke drifting from overhead. Some may fear. Others will crave that power. Best to find friends before foes stake claims. Howland's fingers drummed the table. The children of the forest fed sap to dragons once. So the tales say. They balanced flame with leaf. Balance now lies trembling. They fell to planning, dispatching emissaries to White Harbor for ships, sending Reed scouts to moat Kaelin's causeways, forging dragonglass arrowheads. When dawn streaked the windows, Ned dismissed them. Alone, he placed the spider letter inside a leather pouch and crossed to the tower where Winterflame perched. The dragon watched the horizon, wings furled, tail twisting through half-melted snow. Ned climbed the narrow stair until his head rose beside iron-scaled shoulder. He laid the letter by the creature's claws. Winterflame's nostrils flared. Steam gusted. It lowered its head, eye nictitating. Ned stroked the ridge above its crimson iridge. "Your brother calls," he whispered. "Would that you could answer." Winterflame's chest expanded, a low rumble vibrating through stone. The sound seemed almost mournful. Ned closed his eyes, recalling a baby's cry in a dragonstone corridor. Echoes of a path chosen, of a promise yet unpaid. Far south, King Robert's court steamed under the crownland summer. The king's girth pressed against gilded doublet, cheeks flushed from hunt and drink. He lounged upon the iron throne after a short council, Cersei flicking an irritated glance as he waved away the maesters. Lord Tywin's gold had shored up coffers in exchange for trade monopolies, yet talk of a Stark dragon consumed the Red Keep's corridors. Servants whispered that Robert's dreams turned fitful, beset by heat. Pyromancers petitioned for audience, claiming wildfire could match a dragon's breath. Robert scoffed, but ordered stockpiles inspected. In the Tower of the Hand, Jon Arryn's successor, Lord Renly Baratheon, installed to curry family favor, perused a parchment from Varys. It detailed troop counts in the north, the dragon's estimated wingspan, its feeding cycles. Renly frowned. "My brother hunts boars while fire hatches in the snow," he muttered. Littlefinger lounged nearby, flicking dust from green velvet. "The north is distant," Littlefinger said. "And dragons' distant memories. Better we stoke fear than frost. Investors pay handsomely for dread." Renly's jaw tightened. "Investors do not stand when the sky burns." Littlefinger smiled thinly. "Then perhaps we invest in a storm before the burn." On the wall, clouds bruised purple as evening settled. Benjen Stark leaned against a crenelle, scanning the haunted forest. Snow ghosts drifted among pines, yet something else moved, patches of shimmer like moonlight on glass. Rangers returning from Frostfangs spoke of dead things hushed by warmth, of tracks melting before prints finished setting. Benjen found a shard of blackened ice at Molestown Crossing, still damp with stink of burnt flesh. When he set it near torchlight, it hissed and vanished. That night he dreamed of a red monster wheeling above black trees, each wing beat fanning heat, until the wood dripped sap like blood. From the shadows, pale figures stared with eyes like frozen suns. Loud cracks, like ice splitting, echoed as they raised crystal swords. But then a second dragon voice answered, distant, high, carrying notes of sorrow and promise. Benjen woke sweating under bearskins. He took horse before dawn, riding for Winterfell with 3 swan-feathered ravens strapped to his saddle. 3 weeks after the spider's warning, a wedding took place beyond the walls of Pentos. It occurred not under Septon vows, nor even the Valyrian rites of old, but upon trampled sand within a manse garden where Dothraki grass had been imported for authenticity. Khal Drogo stood bare-chested, skin glistening with painted oils, black braid nearly brushing hip. Beside him, Daenerys shimmered in dusky rose samite, gift of Magister Illyrio, crowned with blossoms of pale fire. Viserys watched like a starving cat, eyes bright with lust for power. Illyrio presided, flanked by red priests intoning hymns to R'hllor. Janos kept to the edge beneath a lemon tree, unseen save by a pair of unsullied. His doublet bore no sigil, only a thin chain of black iron circled his throat. The ceremony's words washed over him, Boran. Yet when Drogo tied a velvet strip around Daenerys' wrist, sealing the pact, Janos felt the twist in his chest as strongly as if the knot bound him too. He forced himself to breathe slow. The air smelled of horse sweat, roasted goat, and spice. Gifts came next. Illyrio presented 12 silver-mounted mares and a chest of jade fetishes. The red priests offered amphorae of flame wine. Viserys, lacking wealth, granted promises written upon parchment he expected one day to seal with a crown. Then Daenerys stepped forward holding 3 lacquered chests. She opened each in turn. Within lay dragon eggs. The first gleamed pale cream shot with gold, like a sunrise over frost. The second shimmered green-veined copper, scales arranged in feather patterns. The third flashed black as midnight surf, laced with scarlet that pulsed when torches flared. Gasps rippled. Even Drogo's dark eyes widened. Janos' knees nearly weakened. He felt heat across the garden not born of braziers. The eggs were cold to touch, they said, yet something in them sang to him, distant, like horns across fog. Soon music swelled. Heady Rhoynish strings, drums echoing hoofbeat patterns. Dothraki blood-riders clashed araks in mock battle. Qartheen dancers stitched flame shapes through night. Wine flowed. Viserys drank greedily, extolling return to Westeros. Illyrio's laughter rumbled like rolling coins. Janos slipped away, heart hammering. In the corridor leading to the manse's private wing, he nearly collided with Daenerys' handmaid, a girl from the Summer Isles. She bowed. "Khaleesi requests your presence," she said. He hesitated, then followed down a lantern-lit passage. The maid ushered him into a chamber heavy with incense and silks. Daenerys knelt by a table, 3 eggs arrayed before her. Candlelight slid over their curved shells. She rose as he entered, her wedding cloak falling back to reveal bare shoulders. They felt heavy at first. She whispered, but too soon they cooled. "I thought to bring them to you." "Why?" She touched the black and scarlet egg. "Because when you speak, I hear the same whisper they give me. I do not understand it, but I trust it." Janos stepped forward, every heartbeat thunder. He extended a hand, hovered above the green copper egg. Pulse leapt beneath his palm. Faint, fleeting, they call to blood. He murmured, recalling smoky lessons with red priests who claimed fire lived in veins. "Blood." Her voice trembled. "If Viserys learns, he sees only crowns." Janos lowered his hand. "He will not hear what we hear." Daenerys' gaze flickered to his chain. "You said dragons choose where to belong. Could they choose us?" "I think they already have." He reached out, not for the egg but for her fingers. Warm skin met his, lightning arcing up his arm. Daenerys inhaled sharply. For an instant, the chamber faded. No incense, no silk, only the hush of beating wings. A cough sounded from the doorway. Viserys lurched in, half drunk, face flushed. "Playing with toys, sweet sister," he sneered. Eyes narrowed at Janos. "And you, northern stray, my sister is wed now. See you keep courtesy." Daenerys drew back, hands clasping. Janos inclined his head. "I keep only what belongs to me." Viserys laughed. "Nothing belongs to you. You're an orphan of chance." Janos met his glare. Fire does not heed orphans. Viserys' smile faded. Before words sharpened, Illyrio appeared with Khal Drogo's translator. The Magister praised first night rituals, urged rest. Viserys stalked out, cloak swirling. Daenerys lingered, eyes pleading apology. Janos returned a slight nod. Then she was gone, and he was alone with eggs whispering through candle flame. Weeks flickered by like moths around torchlight. Drogo's Khalazar departed Pentos in a river of horses, Daenerys in its heart. Illyrio's manse emptied, echoing with absence. Janos remained, training with Braavosi water dancers to still the tremor inside. Each night he dreamed of dragons, one red and vast, one trio of unhatched hearts, circling a mountain of black ice. Snow fell into flames, hissing. Letters from ceased. He sent none. Instead, he practiced Valyrian phrases, studied maps of the narrow sea, traced shipping routes. He spent hours atop the manse's highest turret, watching gulls ride thermals. Some nights flames flickered beneath his skin, until he plunged into fountain pools to cool. Illyrio observed, coaxed, praised. The Magister spoke of Volantene captains, of Golden Company proposals. War whispers grew. Finally, on the 7th night of the 3rd moon, Illyrio summoned Janos to his private dining hall. Candle pyramids lit heaps of stuffed quail. Rich curtains, stifled breeze. Illyrio gestured to a chair carved of oily teak. My boy, he began. For years I have nurtured in you the promise of a dragon reborn. The time has come to unfurl wings. Janos waited. Drogo rides east to V's Dothrak, yes, but when he turns, he will forge a horde the world has not seen. Ships are being built in Qohor and Lys. Your sister, if I may call her that, will wield the Khals' might. Yet even dragons need guides. You are blood of the dragon through your mother, and you have felt their call. The world will know 2 heads of the dragon, maybe 3. Then Dawal. Viserys imagines himself 1 head, Janos said flatly. Illyrio chuckled. Viserys is brittle. Fire tests all needles. Should he break, another may rise. And me? You. Illyrio's eyes gleamed. You shall sail to Korth, meet allies. From there Slaver's Bay. Daenerys will value counsel of kin. When the time is ripe, you fly west. Janos looked at the tapestry behind Illyrio. Valyria before the doom. Dragons gliding above spires. And if I refuse? Illyrio's smile never faltered. You will not. The wind that rustles dragon wings rustles yours too. He leaned forward, flesh creasing. Besides, letters from the north speak of a father who waited long to see his son grown. Would you deny him a future? The words struck like hammer. What letters? Illyrio poured wine. Ah, secrets. A magister must keep some, else what separates him from fishwives? Janos rose. I will consider, but I choose my path. Illyrio toasted. Choose. Yet no shores draw near whether sailors will or no. Imnautshar. That night, Janos climbed the manse roof. Stars spilled across dark vaults. He closed his eyes, breathing deep, and felt the world between breaths. Snowbound keep far away, dragon heat radiating like a northern dawn, and across endless grass a silver maiden whispering to eggs unborn. Threads tugged from every direction, weaving him into a tapestry vast as the sky. He spread arms wide, imagining wings. In Winterfell, the white knife flooded under sudden melt. A raven arrived, Benjen's letter describing fell things beyond the wall, tracks hissing with strange heat. He begged dragon aid. Ned paced before the dais in the great hall, paper clutched. Winterflame perched upon the rookery tower, restless. Saddle the beast, Ned ordered at last. We ride at dawn. Robb stepped forward. I go with you. You will hold Winterfell, Ned said. Robb's jaw tightened. The north might follow a dragon, but it follows you. If you fall beyond the wall, what then? Ned looked into his son's face. So like Catelyn's in stubbornness. Very well. We ride together. Bran oversees in our stead. Ser Rodrik commands guard. Then? That night they prepared, loading obsidian spears, bundling furs. Arya begged to accompany. Sansa prayed at the sept. Bran climbed to the tower top to say farewell to Winterflame. The dragon lowered its head as the boy pressed a kiss between scales. Bring him back, Bran whispered. Bring Jon too. Winterflame rumbled agreement. At first light, snow still whispering from low clouds, Ned climbed into the saddle fitted behind the dragon's neck. Robb swung up wearily behind. A dozen spearmen mounted Garrons below, eyes wide. Catelyn watched from the gatehouse, hand pressed to heart. She had not slept, nor would until they returned. With a thrust of giant wings, Winterflame leapt, courtyard shrinking as shadows fled. Ice roofs glimmered, turrets passed like toy soldiers, then white nothingness rushed beneath. Robb whooped despite fear. Ned held fast, cloak flaring. Wind keened hollow through mail. The dragon roared, a burst of flame lighting the dawn. They soared north, across Wolfswood, over Last River, into skies where stars still lingered. Below, forests rolled endless, snowy crests breaking only for frozen lakes. Noon found them at the Shadow Tower, black spire dwarfed by vast wall stretching east-west. Men looked up, mouths agape, as Winterflame alighted on packed ice. Benjen hurried forth, eyes rimmed red from lost sleep. yet shining at sight of brother and nephew. "There are fires in the mountains," he reported. "But not burns there." Ned dismounted. "Lead us." They rode through the gate yawned from frozen stone, into wild beyond. Trees loomed crystalline, limbs sheathed in rime. No birds sang. Winterflame glided overhead, casting red glow. After 2 leagues, Benjen halted. Snow churned before them. Footprints human-sized, yet edges melted. At their centers lay gray sludge smelling of rotten milk. Rob knelt. "What makes snow melt this deep at freezing?" Benjen's lips pressed thin. "Those tracks belong to whites." He pointed to a fallen pine. Its trunk blackened. Bark blistered as if scorched. "Last night we saw a glow, then nothing." Ned surveyed treeline. Silence pressed. He drew ice. "If the dead fear fire, then we bring fire beyond fear." He raised his voice. "Winterflame." The dragon swept down, landing with boom that shook boughs. Snow cascaded, melting on contact with radiating heat. Ned held his sword high. "Hunt." Winterflame's nostrils flared. It crept forward, tail snaking, wings half unfurled, breath fogged before gnashing teeth. Then the forest erupted. Shapes burst from snow, corpses with blue eyes ablaze. Spears of black ice hurled. The spearmen shrank back, but dragonfire roared forth, a torrent of crimson gold that vaporized the first rank. Screams split air, no human throats, but jagged ice cracking. Creatures staggered, skin sloughing. Rob slashed one down, its body melted to foul puddle. Yet for each slain wight, another lurched into clearing. Winterflame wheeled, flame sweeping arcs. Trees ignited, sap popping. Ned and Benjen fought back to back. Obsidian blades shattered bone like glass. Enemy numbers thinned, but the stench grew overpowering. When at last silence fell, charred remains smoked in craters of muddy slush. Benjen wiped sweat, though frost rimmed his beard. "I fear they test our strength." "For what?" Rob asked. "Winter," Ned answered, chest heaving. He touched Winterflame's neck. Scales thrummed. "And they will find the north is not unguarded." They burned cairns where no cairns were, purifying ground. Then they mounted the dragon and soared back to the wall, trailing pillars of steam. News spread south before them, sent by swiftest raven, to River Run to King's Landing, even across narrow sea to Kuhor, where Dothraki horsemen traded rumors at foreign fires. A stark dragon had scoured undead in the haunted forest. Some scoffed, yet others felt the tremor as if the world's spine shifted. Far across the Dothraki sea, Daenerys rode at Drogo's side, beneath sky sheets of hammered copper. As day faded, she reached for the black and scarlet egg in her saddlebag, as she had nightly since leaving Pentos. It pulsed, faint warmth. That evening she dreamt of a dragon cloaked in winter's breath, of a man with eyes like smoke and snow standing beneath it. Together they faced a shadow crowned in ice. She woke before dawn, heart racing. Outside the Khalasar stirred, horses snorting. Across embers, Jiki dozed. Daenerys rose, clutching the egg. "Janos," she whispered into the night, though no one heard. Janos stood upon the deck of the Dove of Korth, sails snapping as the vessel slipped into velvet waves. Pentoshi lanterns dwindled, leaving only sea and stars. He leaned on the rail, feeling spray kiss his face. In his cabin lay a small oak chest. Within it, hidden beneath plain cloaks, lay 2 slender daggers of dragonglass Illyrio had procured at great cost. He traced constellations. One cluster, the direwolf, glimmered low in the west. Another, the dragon, coiled high overhead. Wind filled canvas, carrying him eastward toward deserts and prophecies, toward a sister bride, and perhaps toward war. Yet in his mind he felt a tether stretching behind, not to Pentos, but to a keep where snow melted under unseen fire. He whispered to waves, "I will come home," and the sea answered in hush of foam. In King's Landing, ruffled courtiers read broadsheets claiming winter whites, battered back by dragonflame. Some declared it northern myth, others swore red priests predicted such. Robert tossed a scroll aside and cracked a cask of Arbor gold. "If Ned's beast wins battles for the Night's Watch," he barked, "let him keep it there. 7 save us from bloody snow demons." Cersei narrowed her eyes. "Demons or dragons, your kingdom weakens when lords hoard power." "It is the realm's power," Robert retorted. "If threats ride from north or east, I'll meet them with steel, not sorcery." Varys bowed from shadows. "Steel may hold men, your grace, yet dragons hold hearts. Perhaps better to bind the heart's flame than drown in its ashes." Robert spat. "Your riddles rot." Still, that night he dreamed of a wolf aflame and woke uneasy. Winter deepened in the north, though fields near Winterfell remained strangely fertile. Frost-edged foothills, but barley grew taller than men's waists beneath dragon warmth. Small folk sang songs: Winter's fire, Stark's desire, Dragon's wing. Spring shall bring. Old Nan spun tales by hearthlight of the last time ice and fire danced. Yet Ned knew warmth could draw storms. Ravens told of Bolton envoys visiting Lannister camps, of Carhold scouts venturing south unbidden. He summoned lords to Winterfell: Manderlys, Glover, Tallheart, Doddart. They feasted beneath Winterflame's watchful eye, swearing oaths to stand when needed. Over bread and salt, Ned thanked them. Yet his gaze drifted northward still, to the wall's looming threat, and eastward, where children rode horses across grass. On the 15th day, after returning from beyond the wall, Ned stood in the godswood, red leaves drifting. Catelyn approached, holding a freshly penned letter. "From Riverrun," she said. He read, "Lysa claims her husband poisoned. She fled to Aerie. Hostilities rise. Robert's court unstable." Ned folded parchment with care. "The realm cracks." Catelyn touched his cheek. "Yet we still hold the heart, and the heart burns bright." They embraced beneath white branches stained with sap. ... Above, Winterflame spiraled, wings beating thunder. Its roar flowed across the skies, and somewhere far across oceans, 3 eggs shivered in their copper nest, and one young man on a ship felt heat bloom within his chest. And so threads tightened. Dragon and direwolf, snow and sand, promise and prophecy. The world turned beneath stars old as sin, while men and women, bound by blood and choice, moved upon a board none fully grasped, in keeps of ice and palaces of spice, in fields of barley and seas of grass, tales spread of rising flame. Some prayed, some plotted, some despaired, but all, in dreams or dread, lifted eyes to the heavens, seeking the first shadow of wings against the moon, knowing when they came, nothing born of flesh or frost would remain unchanged. A.K. The Dove of Qarth entered the Jade Gates at dusk, red lacquer hull cutting a mirror of green water that shivered beneath the dying light. Lanterns kindled along the balustrades of the Port of Seals, each orb a polished pearl or smoky topaz, their reflections scattered like coins at a lover's feet. Janos stood at the prow, the city unfolding before him in impossible tears. White ziggurats, copper cupolas, bridges spun of pale jade arching between spires so thin they seemed reeds swaying in some high celestial breeze. Above everything reared the Pureborn's palace, a vast shell of glass and gold leaf curved like the mouth of a leviathan frozen mid-song. He had heard 100 tales of Qarth, of perfumed faceless men, of milk wine sweet as first harvest, of warlocks whose lips were stained with indigo. And yet the air struck him as oddly familiar, a salted tang beneath sandalwood, the same restless wind that prowled the battlements of Winterfell at the changing of watch bells. Illyrio's factor, a wiry Qartheen named Reznak Pa Razai, waited on the quay with litter-bearers clad in silk, the color of bruised lilac. Reznak bowed so deeply his braids swept the damp stones. "Honored scion," he trilled in thick rolled Valyrian, "the Pureborn extend felicitations. Rooms are prepared within the House of Red Delight. Cool fountains, quiet colonnades, the perfect balm after voyage's bite." Janos stepped ashore, boots tapping the flagstone star inlaid at the water's edge. 8 long points radiating sunward, each point a river of mother-of-pearl. "I will lodge where you have made ready," he said, sliding from formal High Valyrian into the sharper consonants of Braavos. "But send a runner at once to the 13. I would confer with Zarokshon Daxos by tomorrow's second bell." "Now?" Reznak blinked, quick as a lizard's nictitating membrane. "Of course, honored, though meetings with the 13 require weeks. Say to Zaro that his new blood relation rides with a Khal who will need ships." Janos' smile was slight, a blade's edge catching lamplight. "He will understand that the wind may change course in days, not weeks." Reznak bowed again and scuttled off, litter bearers hurrying behind. Janos refused the palanquin. Instead he walked the perfume-slick streets, dragging a calloused fingertip along carved cedar rails to feel the pulse of the city. Fishwives cried eels writhing silver in wicker. Masked poets exchanged verses for fig slices. A wine merchant poured vintages the color of old garnet through fluted funnels that sang like wedding pipes. Above, pegged to a wire stretched between minarets, fluttered a banner he recognized. A wolf's head picked out in dull ash thread, jaws open on a smoldering ember. He stopped beneath it, the crowd eddying around his stillness. The banner was smaller than those hung from Winterfell's ramparts, a handspan wide, no more, and someone had stitched it hurriedly, the ember only a smear of red. Yet every stitch tugged his heart tight. He reached for the token, but a child darted ahead. Barefoot, eyes rimmed with kohl, snatched the scrap and thrust it at him. "All flags for sale," the girl proclaimed. "Sells words by before bloodletting so crows know who to feast last." 3 copper pennies, old blood." Janos crouched. "Who hung these?" he asked. "Qartheen cloakbrokers," she said. "They rent gods, women, and banners alike." Glint of teeth. "Will you buy or barter?" He produced 3 coppers, pressing them into her small palm. She bowed an arm flourish, then vanished into a tangle of robes and incense. Janos tied the banner's cord around his forearm, the cloth warm from the child's skin. For a moment he closed his eyes, felt pine smoke drift across memory, heard the measured breathing of direwolves at hearthside. Then the smell of Qarth returned. Saffron, lotus, dust. He lodged that night in the House of Red Delight, where mosaic floors depicted lovers entwined amid drifting leaves. Servants filled a marble basin with water chilled by purple ice caravaned from the heart of the summer sea. Steam ghosted upward in lazy snakes. Janos bathed, letting bruised muscles unknot. But his mind nibbled at possibilities. Zaro's fleets, the 13's purse strings, warlocks who bartered visions for price of sanity. He considered Illyrio's instruction: bind Qarth in gold, then sail south to rejoin the Khalasar at Slaver's Bay, and waited against the pull of letters from the north. At moonrise he donned a simple tunic and padded barefoot to a courtyard open to the night. A lone fig tree grew from a planter of white marble veined like frozen thunder. He leaned against its trunk and slipped a dragon-glass dagger from his belt, turning it in pale light. The blade drank starlight, exhaled it as faint crimson. He wondered if similar blades waited now beyond the wall, sheathed at Black Brother's hips, if they too met the unliving beneath a sky too cold to bear witness. Footsteps whispered across tile. A tall shape coalesced, robes of dark indigo, skin paler than parchment, lips shining purple-black. The visitor stopped at respectful distance. Lamplight pooled in great sorrowing eyes. "You are the Black Dragon," the warlock said, voice thin like wind in chimes. "Words travel fastest on wings of rumor," Janos replied, sheathing the dagger. "Rumor or indigo," the warlock murmured, touching his slick lips. "I am Pyat Pri, humble reader of shadows. The Undying Ones invite you to sip shade of the evening, to glimpse what was, and what might yet be." Janos inclined his head. "What do the Undying seek in return? A flame against their chill, a breath against their stillness, scales perhaps." The warlock's grin stretched too wide. "I am no merchant of scales, yet scales cling to you like memory." Pyat Pri's head tilted. "1 egg hatched in winter's heart, 3 yet slumber. waiting for storm or fire. The Undying would see how many heads the dragon bears. "Then thou tell the Undying," Janos said evenly, "that the dragon bears as many heads as it must, no more, no less. If they pry, they risk burning their hands." Payet's smile faltered. "Fire consumes her crowns. Choose." He lifted a thin-boned hand and blew a kiss of night blue breath. The courtyard lights guttered. Shadows writhed. When Janos blinked, the warlock stood alone no longer. Emptiness claimed the tiles where he had been. Enderel and Shao. Sunrise found the harbor thunderous with gulls. Janos rode a palanquin to Zarogigshon Daxos Manse, atop the hill of dust. Its gates, wrought of hammered jade, parted soundlessly to reveal colonnades fluted in gold leaf, and a courtyard pool, the color of sapphires dissolved in milk. Zaro descended steps in robes of smokery samite, arms wide. "Sweet brother," he called. "My home is yours as the moon is the night's." He embraced Janos, planting perfumed breaths beside each ear. "I smelled change on the wind 2 days past and knew you must be near." Servants poured sweet water cooled with sparmint, and beneath a silk awning they dined on honey fish and pomegranate seeds. When pleasantries died, Janos placed a map upon the table. One drawn by Pentoshi cartographers, showing coastlines from the Basilisk Isles to Dorne. He set his finger upon the Gulf of Grief. "Khal Drogo will strike here," he said. "Once ships gather, he will carve a road through Slaver's Bay, gather tall ships at Astapor and Yunkai, perhaps Meereen. From there, west to Westeros." Zaro's jeweled eyebrows climbed. "An admirable fantasy. But flies bite horses that stand water high. The Dothraki fear ocean. Fear is soothed by gold and prophecy." Janos met Xaro's gaze. "You command both." "Alas, I am but one voice among the 13. "Then lend ships personally," Janos countered. "Earn a share of conquest. Port fees on every newly captured port. Rights to silk trade north of the Red Mountains." Xaro tapped long fingers together. "Ambitious. Yet war empties coffers as quickly as it fills them. What guarantees?" "No. Dragons," Janos said, simple as sunrise. The Qarthine's breath hitched. "Not tales. Eggs quicken even now." Janos left details vague. "When they hatch, those who stood with us will ride the winds of the new age." Xaro's throat worked. An enticing breeze. "Still, others petition me. The Pureborn, the Spicers of Lys, the Greycap Cartel. Persuade me, sweet brother." Janos unfurled the Wolf and Ember banner, laying it across the table. "This symbol marks lands of winter dragons. The North would trade furs, lumber, amber, and iron at preferred tariffs to first allies. Consider how the Jade Sea thirsts for such goods." "And so," Xaro stroked the cloth as though testing dream fabric, "I will convene the 13 at sunset. Present your proposal, and we shall weave possibilities." He smiled, white teeth bright as nacre. "Bring fire enough to outshine the Pureborn's luster." In the House of Red Delight, Janos paced, crafting words as a smith folds steel. He recalled Maester Luwin's lessons. Lead with caution. Strike with certainty. Leave room for retreat. Yet a fiercer voice whispered beneath. "Wind of northern firs, crackle of hearth dragon. Speak truth uncloaked," it urged. "Offer warmth, not threats. Build bridges with flame's gentler heat." He stilled before a mirror. Eyes of granite regarded him. Gray like frosted embers. He thought of Daenerys guiding a silver mare across the endless Dothraki sea. Of Ned Stark gripping Winterflame's saddle. Of Benjen's boots crunching snow over melting whites. 3 fires, each distant, converging upon a frozen knot. And here he stood, a brand balanced between them, uncertain which blaze to feed first. A knock. Reznak slipped in, cheeks sheened with sweat. Honored, a scroll arrived by White Pigeon. He proffered the tube. Janos opened it, heart ratcheting. A single line awaited in firm northern hand. Flame met ice. Dawn yet holds. I stand where snow melts to ash. And see you. Relief dove and rose in the same breath. He crushed the parchment against breast, lips shaping silent vow. Then he gathered documents, strapped sword, and departed for the 13. And the hall of 1,000 thrones rang with gossip as merchants filed along marble aisles. Pillars of translucent jade soared to a roof lost in perfumed haze. Atop each of 13 plinths lounged council members, Fat Zaro in dove gray, gaunt Quaith of the Shadow veiled in red glass beads, the jewel-eyed twins Malako, and Malaza Mo of the Spicer Guild, and 9 others hung with lapis and amber. Torches burned blue-white, a chemical flame that left skin looking corpse-cool. Janos ascended a dais at chamber center. Echoes nested beneath his words as he began. Of winter's cold march, of a dragon hatched in snow, of far-off sisters bearing eggs soon to crack. He spoke of caravans crossing the Bone Mountains to deliver Jade Sea luxuries to northern ports warmed miraculously by fire. He conjured images of silver galleys stamped with trading sigils, crests of wealth rising like tides. The 13 listened, faces shifting between curiosity and calculation. When he finished, silence stretched taut. Zaro cleared his throat first. Sweet brother paints a seductive canvas, yet gold glitters everywhere. What compels Korth to invest in flames that might scorch our sails? Janos drew the dragon glass dagger. Its edge caught the chemical torchlight in a spray of crimson sparks. Because winter frost reaches farther each passing year. You know this. Your spice caravans track shortened summers. Only dragonfire can challenge what comes. Ally now, or beg later. Murmurs slithered through ranks. Malako Mo tapped jeweled claws. Pretty words. But where is proof of this snow dragon? Janos flipped the dagger, blade downward. He thrust it hard into the dais stone. A crack sprouted, spreading spiderweb fissures radiating outward. From those veins, steam hissed, though the platform had been cool moments before. Gasps rose. He withdrew the knife. The crack sealed with soft hiss, leaving a smoky scar shaped faintly like a wolf's head. Dragonglass remembers heat, he said. Ask your warlocks about memory. Quaithy's soft voice floated. Memory cuts both ways. She gestured. From the shadows glided Pyat Pri, indigo lips smiling. He unfurled a silk square depicting a weirwood tree ringed with dragons devouring their own tails. The Undying saw this in shade. Pyat intoned. North and east, ice and flame entwined. If we invest, we must know which devours which. Bane? Neither, Janos replied. They temper each other. The world must forge anew. Korth can place hammer or be the anvil. Silence again. Then Zaro rose, palms up. I propose a preliminary venture. 30 galleys outfitted for deep sea. Captained by Korthine, crewed by willing freeriders. They sail to Slaver's Bay. Convoy the Cal's host westward. In exchange, we secure exclusive port rights at first Westerosi city taken. Murmurs of assent. He bowed to Janos. Can your blood ensure safe passage? It can secure safe harbor once we cross. Janos met each gaze. And that harbor, once wreathed in dragonfire, will hold against any fleet. Quaith pressed her hands together, beads clicking. So let the 13 withdraw to weigh flame against coin. The moon sets soon. We shall answer before dawn. They filed out in swirling robes, Pyats trailing indigo shadows. Janos exhaled, shoulders loosening. Yet as he departed the hall, he glimpsed a shape moving against torchlight. Tall, plume-helmed, a Braavosi sellsword perhaps, but the sigil on his half-cloak snagged Janos' breath. Flayed man red on pink flesh. Bolton, Dot. He tailed the stranger through arcades heavy with bougainvillea, until they emerged on a balcony overlooking the canal of painted whispers. There the sellsword paused, sensing pursuit. He whirled, knife glinting. Janos parried with bare forearm, twisting the blade aside, then slammed hilt of his dagger into the man's jaw. The figure crumpled, helmet tumbling. Under brazen moonlight, The Bolton sigil showed plain. A wax patch sewn inside cloak lining. Janos knelt, pressing blade to throat. Why spy? The sellsword spat blood. Coin is coin. A lord north of your snows wants whispers of dragons. He pays well. Name. The man coughed. Never met him. Messengers only. Eyes narrowed. But they speak of flensing more than foes. Janos' stomach chilled. He sheathed dagger. Tell your lord this. Winterflame soars, and the north burns cold only for enemies. Carry that warning home. He hauled the man upright, shoved him toward stairwell. Sellsword staggered off. Janos lingered, gaze drifting south across moon-drunk canals, wondering how far Bolton knives would reach when true war began. Nai. Dawn blushed pale pearl as the 13 reconvened. Xaro announced accord. They would fund 30 galleys, dispatch emissaries to Drogo's Khalasar bearing rich gifts and iron chests of silver. In return, the Dothraki would allow Qartheen crews, and upon conquering First Westerosi port, grant monopoly rights for a decade. Janos signed with the sigil of the Embered Direwolf. Quaithe sealed the pact with a drop of indigo on her tongue, pressing blue lips to the parchment. The kiss left a sigil shaped like a dragon coiling around a weirwood. The warlock Pyat Pri stepped forward. The Undying bless this venture, though they demand witness to hatching flames. Bring an egg to the House of the Undying, and the pact is doubled. 60 ships, sorcerous winds to speed sails. Janos hesitated. The eggs are not mine to barter. Then ask she who bears them. Pyat's eyes widened with unnatural hunger. Bring one, even for a night, or the winds may blow cold. Memsuashen. He bowed and withdrew into shadow. Xaro clasped Janos' arm. A small concession, sweet brother. The warlocks hold power of unseen currents. Boats cross seas in half-moons when their spells align. I will bring no egg into their maze, Janos answered. But I will bring flame. You will witness enough. Xaro sighed, resigned. So be it. Ships prepare within the week. You shall sail south along Valyrian coast, then east to join the Khalasar at Meereen's shadow. From there, destiny. Yet destiny rarely waits politely. That afternoon, as Janos crossed the fragrant plaza of purple silks, a cry erupted by the canal. People scattered, shrieking. A murder boat, long and narrow, shot between pilings, oars feathering black water. At its bow rode a masked figure in leathers flayed at sleeves, pink skin painted beneath to mimic gore. Crossbow snapped, quarrel whistled. Janos pivoted. The bolt hissed past, shaving hair. He leapt. Snatched a hanging lantern. Hurled it. Flame splashed over prow. The murderer howled, batting at burning foredeck, but the craft kept on. Another quarrel thudded into a silk kiosk. Guards chased along embankment. Horns blared. The boat vanished under Arch of Lovers Bridge, leaving oily smoke. Bolton again. Janos' hand shook upon the dragonglass hilt until he mastered fury. They hunted through Qarth canals. How long until they hunted at Winterfell's gates or Drogo's camp? He strode to the 13's courier post, penned grim missives sealed in wax the color of embered snow, and dispatched them north and east. One to Ned Stark, one to Daenerys, one to Illyrio. Each bore same closing. Bolton knives aim for dragon hearts. Guard your fires. Soon we fly. In the red waste, Daenerys shivered under a vault of unblinking stars. The Khalasar lay scattered about her in horsehair tents, but sleep eluded her. She rose, stepping barefoot among cool dunes until she reached the clutch pit where her 3 eggs nestled in black sand, warmed by braziers. She knelt, brushing fingers across mottled shells. Warmth pulsed. Stronger every night, as though some deep tide rose within. She closed eyes, and vision swelled. A hall of twisting zinc-blue roots, torches burning azure. At its center, a man wielding a dagger of midnight glass that bled red fire. His face blurred, yet she knew him. Knew the set of his shoulders, the gravity behind gray eyes. He turned, reaching, then dissolved, replaced by a wolf wreathed in ember sparks. Behind the wolf, An army of shadows moved, pale swords rippling with frost. She woke still kneeling, heart galloping. The eggs hummed under her palms. Somewhere beyond horizon, she felt Gianna's pulse echoing hers. Two hearts drumming across leagues of sand and sea. Soon, she whispered, our fires join. At that moment a red comet tore across the sky, trailing brightness like molten iron plunged in night's forge. Every horse in camp stirred. Riders murmured omens. Denris lifted her chin, comet light painting her hair with copper flame. She sensed the eggs quicken in synchrony. Umando. In Winterfell, Catelyn stood atop the eastern battlement, face uplifted as the same comet scarred heavens. Winterflame roared beneath the streak, wings scattering stardust frost. Sparks shivered across its scales. Bran tottered at her side, peering wide-eyed, while Rickon clung to her cloak. It's a sword, Bran breathed. No, a wolf, Rickon insisted. Catelyn scarcely heard. Her thoughts leapt south to Ned and Robb returning from the wall. They were 3 days overdue. She feared wind had grounded Winterflame, or worse. Then a different roar, lower distant, echoed beyond the tree line. She squinted. A dark shape breaching horizon, half shrouded in cloud. Not dragon wings, canvas sails. A fleet on the shivering sea, bearing banners none in Winterfell had seen. She turned, calling orders. Light watchfires, ready towers, fetch maester. As men scrambled, torches flaring, she caught sight of banners unfurling on foremost mast. A pink field, red man flayed, Bolton. Her heart froze. Sound the bell, she commanded. Rouse every sword. The bell tolled like doom rolling through night. In the Godswood, sap hissed where comet light touched branches. The north braced. And so, on the Dove of Korth, Janos watched the comet blaze westward, reflection bleeding along the wine-dark sea. He swore the tail curved toward him like an arrow pointing home. Crewmen crossed fingers against evil. He felt only certainty. The world's forge hammered now, tempering destinies. He touched Dragonglass hilt, then the banner bound to his arm. Winds caught sails. The ship leaned into swell. Ahead waited Slaver's Bay. Beyond that, the narrow sea. Beyond that, wolves, dragons, and deathless winter. He whispered into the gale. Hold fast, father. Hold fast, sister. I bring fire. Nendavardin. Sea replied with thunderous hush, and the comet burned on. Vanguard of change streaking from Korth's jeweled towers to the silent wall, trailing sparks that would soon ignite banners from Dorne to the lands of always winter. And beneath all, deeper than roots of the world, something stirred, drawn by heat of twin fires converging, by heartbeat of destiny, not yet sung. In crypts and caves, in frosted forests and drowned cities, ancient watchers raised blind faces to the blazing scar. Some keened in dread, some knelt in joy. All knew the age of slumber was ending. The dragon had traded brother for egg, promise for prophecy, and now the reckoning rode on wings of flame. Ua, Pandi, Penica. The bell's toll pealed across Winterfell, each clang a hammer strike on the anvil of night. Ravencoats erupted in dark wings, dogs barked and snapped chains. Catelyn ran the parapet, skirts flying, hair released from its maiden braid to stream copper bright beneath the comet's glow. Far below, the guards pounded pikes to ready shields, sparks glittering on iron edges. Smoke hung in the cold air like a stalled breath, and the Godswood leaves trembled in its uncertain hush. From the eastern watchtower Maester Luwin appeared, parchment-strewn sleeves flapping. My lady. Ships from the shivering sea, he called, breath misting. Bolton pennants at the fore, but others behind, sable moons, black irons, men sworn south and west. They come by water to avoid the neck, she replied, voice hard. They fear our causeways but trust the tide. Luwin squinted at the red comet blazing high. Ill omen, some will say. Or a torch, Caitlin answered. A torch to see traitors for what they are. Horn blasts quickened, 3 notes for mustering to wall. Servants raced through archways carrying bundles of barbed quarrels. Bran, pale in linen nightshirt, clutched the crenel beside Catelyn. Eyes huge. Where is father? Riding home, she said, hoping the words might carve truth. He will reach us by dawn. We need only hold. The first longship scraped ashore beyond the weir. Hull grinding shale. Shield-shrouded forms spilled across moonlit flats. Silent rowers turned raiders, their helms flayed to reveal grinning snarls of red paint. They trudged through tidal mud towards Winterfell's lower palisade. Torches ignited like malignant blossoms, and horns low as walrus calls brayed. Sir Roderick Castle met them at the outer gate. White mustache stiff with rime. Stand arrows, he barked, and hold until Darrowolf sing. He raised a gauntleted fist, signal to the archers lining the rampart. Shafts thrummed. Streaks of shadow arcing into night. Screams floated back, muffled by surf. But behind the Boltons, heavier craft glided nearer. Black banners whispering at masts. Greyjoy krakens and tall spears of Lord Karstark flickered into torchlight. Caitlyn's pulse burned. Union of sea and betrayal ringed her walls like a noose. Above the courtyard, Winterflame wheeled, heated breath hissing clouds that swirled red under comet light. Its roar shook the ramparts. Archers hesitated, arrows knocked, but trembling. The beast's shadow washed over palisade and sea both. A single stroke of night deeper than any device of man. Caitlyn climbed to the rookery balcony where the dragon perched. Its great head swung as she approached, pupils wide slits of molten bronze. She would have preferred Ned or Robb, both away, but her resolve felt forged this night. She laid a hand upon the warm scale ridge, speaking not command, but entreaty. Guard them, she whispered. Hold your hearth. Winterflame chuffed, nostrils flaring sparks that danced, then died. It leapt from the tower, wings slamming air in thunderclaps, and angled eastward toward the lapping fleet. Bolts flew up, barbed, chain-linked, but melted mid-flight. The dragon loosed a ribbon of searing gold that stitched across 3 hulls. Pitch, mast, and wetted fleece flashed into an inferno bright as sunrise. Men leapt, screaming, into water that steamed around them, flesh sloughing as they thrashed. From the wall road to the north came fresh thunder, hoofbeats and wing beats together. Winterflame's roar answered, jubilant, as another shape split the sky, smaller yet swift as Throne's spear, scales star-white under comet gleam. Caitlyn's breath hitched. It could be no creature of Winterfell, yet she sensed kinship in its cry. The newcomer banked over the wolf gate and sat down inside, talons gouging stone. Benjen Stark dropped from its neck, black cloak curling. At his back clung a girl no older than 10, her eyes blue fire bright, hair a tangle of moss. She slid down, touched the beast's shoulder in parting. Caitlyn descended. Brother, she greeted, tears threatening. What? Found him. Her. North of the fist, Benjen said, voice rough from long cold. Iceworm of some First Men legend, yet flesh and blood, as you see. We followed the fire. He surveyed burning ships. Good you have plenty. Thunder of wings drew their gaze. Winterflame swooped low, releasing another gout upon a line of beach-bound raiders. Flames touched peat stockpile left by the Boltons. The whole dune erupted, sending cinders across ice floes. On the battlements, Bran trembled at the spectacle. Then Rickon tugged his sleeve. Look. The woods. Pines beyond the east wood, cracked. Trunks bending. Ranks of men in patchwork hides emerged. Crannogmen bearing frog spear and net. Howl bending in throats. At their center strode Howland Reed, reed crown tied across brow. Faint glow coiled his staff. The bog lights of his homeland. They advanced toward the Bolton flank, whose men wavered seeing phantoms spill from marsh where none should stand. Bolton trumpets brayed retreat. Yet relief was illusion. Another fleet's lanterns glittered seaward. Rowan, Risewell, and Manderley colors, loyalty's true. The traitor ships found themselves hemmed by flame inland and icy breakers outward. Wolf banners lifted as the newcomers encircled from shoreside. Horns of loyalty answered. Amid the chaos, a lone boat glided through smoldering water, white sail plain. A rider stood in its bow, a tall silhouette cloaked in snowdust fur, gauntleted hands gripping a spear fashioned of black ice. His helm bore no sigil, but pale eyes gleamed like moonlit frost. He stepped onto burning timber, unmoved by smoke, and raised the spear toward Winterfell. Catelyn's blood chilled. Another foe. Benjen's ice worms snarled deep. Winterflame circled to confront the stranger, flames licking ready. But the figure spoke words that cracked across water like splitting bone. Frost leapt from the spear, a spiderweb of violet white across waves, extinguishing fire. Blackened hulls froze. Flames hissed dead. Winterflame backbeat desperate, singed wings trailing steam where frost kissed membrane. The courtyard temperature plunged. Torches sputtered into blue tongues. Hoarfrost crawled up stone walls in swirling runes that seemed to breathe. From the Godswood heart tree came a groan. Sap frozen mid-bleed. Bran felt it inside his chest like needles. The comet's light dulled, edges paling as though bled of heat. Benjen swung onto the snow-white dragon. Snowbane, he named her in that moment, and called to Catelyn. Keep walls shut. We strike cold with fire. He spurred Snowbane skyward. The dragon replied with a crystalline screech. Speckled frost crystals trailing from its jaws. They soared for the frost spear stranger. Below, Ser Roderick rallied spearmen. Obsidian points, he shouted. Boys rushed crates open, passing black glass pikes. Crannog men armed likewise, forming crescent. Reed chant rose. Old tongues naming salt and earth, warning ice to break. Winterflame banked, reluctant yet obedient to Ned's eldest son's voice transmitted through long-taught signals. It spat flame at the figure. The enemy pivoted, spear whirling, conjuring a shield of swirling snow that swallowed fire into hiss and mist. But from opposite arch, Snowbane dove, exhaling breath not fire but piercing note. Sound so high it splintered ice shield, shattering it into glitter shards. The frost spearman staggered. Winterflame's next plume struck unguarded. Black ice cracked. Spearhead glowing as conflagration washed over. A howl thin as midnight wind scattered gulls as waves of heat and cold collided, sending shockwave across beach and rampart alike. Men were thrown to their knees, helms ringing stone. When steam cleared, only burnt kelp remained at tide line. Spear shards glinting among stones like obsidian teeth. The unnatural cold receded. The comet resumed crimson glow, brighter now, as though fed by triumph. Cheers rippled from walls to shoreline. Bolton survivors, abandoned by their conjured white champion, dropped weapons, kneeling. Catelyn breathed out. Sea breeze carried char and pine sap. ... She saw the cost. 6 houses ablaze near outer gate, 2 towers cracked by frost shock, bodies lining surf both friend and foe. Yet Winterfell still stood, and under a sky alight with omen fire, 2 dragons roared in victory. Dawn brushed the horizon rose gold as Ned Stark and Robb rode through Breaker's Pass, hooves drumming frost-laden turf. Winterflame's triumphant call guided them homeward long before walls rose into view. Ned's heart hammered with each echo. The beast had fought without him, and Winterfell yet called. That meant Catelyn had commanded, and it meant threat had come. They spurred horses harder, reaching Wintertown as smoke still curled above breached barns. Small folk bowed weary heads. At the gatehouse, Ser Roderick greeted them, steel-dented, coat singed. "My lord," he rasped. Bolton betrayal straddled sea and dark sorcery. Yet the lady held. Robb leapt down, eyes scanning carnage. Direwolf Grey Wind slunk at his side, fur bristled with residual electricity of battle. Ned clasped Roderick's arm, then ascended steps 2 at a time. Catelyn awaited in the hall, Bran beside her, wrapped in wolfskin yet fresh resolve. For all the soot, her posture was unbowed. Ned swept her into arms, When you were gone, she murmured. Winter tried to slip through cracks. We denied it entry. And no. He touched her cheek. You defended our heart. Gray eyes softened. But, sorcery. An ice warrior conjured by powers unknown, she said. Broken between twin dragons. She gestured toward courtyard where Winterflame preened torn wing right beside Snowbane, whose white scales shimmered pale rainbow. Your brother found a companion in the wild. Ned strode outside. Benjen knelt by Snowbane's forefoot, murmuring to the creature. He rose, clasping Ned. White's Roman numbers, brother. Yet old powers stir to counterbalance. Ned rested hand on Snowbane's cool flank. Dragons of ice, dragons of fire. Our foes play coarser than we guessed. Benjen nodded toward shattered spear shards gathered in satchel. This weapon, ice forged with night magic. I will send fragments to the Citadel with ravens to Old Town. Maester Lewin joined, excitement in lines of his face. We must record interplay of cold and heat. Two draconic species coexisting. Astonishing. Ned watched Winterflame extend scorched wings. The membrane regrew quicker near cracked veins, a regeneration he'd begun to suspect. Fire healing fire. Snowbane gazed with lambent eyes at her scarred sibling. He sensed alliance forming beyond mortal languages. He turned to Robb. Summon northern banners. We ride on Dreadfort before Bolton raises more twisted alliances. We must strip traitor root and branch. Robb's smile was wolfish. They chose wrong side of flame. He grasped hilt of sword Frostfall, gifted by Ned upon returning from Wall. We march within the week. Caitlin interjected. Letters arrived, one by sea from Korth. She passed parchment, sealed with Ember Wolf. Ned broke wax, scanning lines. His jaw clenched, then eased. John lives, he breathed. He sails to rally Daenerys and Drogo. Bolton knives hunt him too. He looked skyward, where Comet still blazed. We move south eventually, but first secure the north. Benjen placed a map on barrel top. Bolton fleet crippled, yet stronghold remains inland. We take by land, dragons above. Reed men guide marsh approach, Manderley supply from sea. Behind them, Bran listened, grasping the rhythm of war councils as keenly as any truths told by old gods. He touched bark of a blossomless apple tree and felt winter's bite waning for a moment. Enanderawanchi. Across the narrow sea, Janos stood on quarterdeck of the Carthene flagship Blood Ruby, watching black sails unfurl with painted dragon skulls. 30 ships. Holds stuffed with Illyrio's gold. Cut azure swaths south toward Slaver's Bay. Above, the comet was at zenith. Sailors muttered that it bled for their cause. He read Ned's latest Raven by lantern. Bolton betrayal failed. Mother stands fanged. Winterfell holds. Relief came tempered by urgency. Foes would redouble. Xaro lounged against balustrade, hands glittering with rings. Message from Pentos, he announced. Viserys missing. Some claim murdered in Dothraki camp. Khal's riders scoured dunes. Janos' pulse thudded. Daenerys? Protected. So rumor sings. Widowed perhaps, if Viserys dead. Khal Drogo rumored wounded though. Xaro shrugged. Deserts swallow truth. An ache speared Janos' chest. Viserys' death little concerned him. But Drogo's wound could scatter the Khalasar, jeopardize alliance. He pictured Daenerys alone amid lion grasses, eggs clutched in trembling arms. The wind tasted suddenly of sand. We sail faster, he ordered. Pour all coin to bribe Windsingers, push rowers day and night. I must reach her. Lightning cracked far off, though no clouds reared. Xaro's face paled. Sorcery rides our keel, sweet brother. Play cautious or drown in own flame. Better drown than stillborn, Janos replied. He climbed rigging, Ravenwatch perched at topmast. In the crow's nest, he drew dragonglass dagger, slashed his palm. Blood-dotted blade molten red, dripped black into sea. He closed eyes, calling across leagues. To Daenerys, to Winterflame, to Snowbane. Somewhere they heard. He felt answering resonance, eggs stirring, dragons ruffling. The world's tapestry tightened another knot. And all. In the red waste, winds rose to gale. Tents tore free, galloping across sands. Jiki dragged ropes to anchor the Khaleesi's pavilion, but dust devils slashed lines. Drogo lay fevered inside, his wound seeping dark. Daenerys held the black scarlet egg against his brow, whispering Valyrian prayers. Beneath her fingers, the shell thrummed with heartbeats. Outside, riders argued. Without Drogo, the Khalasar threatened to fragment. Some looked to Koto, bloodrider with braids heavy from triumph. Others eyed the foreign woman with fear. When comet flared overhead, many bowed. Some to Daenerys, some to sky, none sure. She rose, facing them. "The dragon tests us," she said. "We pass or perish." She gestured to the pyre they built for the witchwoman who had poisoned Drogo. They would burn her at moonset. Fire for false magic, but fire can cleanse. Trust flame, and it will feed us. Some scoffed, yet in her voice lay quiet certainty. Night fell. They set torches to Straw.Hor. Pyre blazed high. Daenerys stepped into edge of heat, letting gown ignite. Gasps rang, but she did not burn. Silk fluttered away char to reveal bare skin shining copper. She pressed the 3 eggs around herself. Cream gold, green copper, black scarlet. Flame curled hungry licking, but eggs drank heat. Veins glowing. The witch shrieked as robes lit. Drogo's litter, bound beside pyre by Daenerys' command, smoldered. At peak roar, comet above pulsed, and wood cracked explosively. Then silence. From embers rose roar of newborn lungs. First, black scarlet egg shattered. Wings unfurled soot dark. Eyes molten lava. Drogon Torrie. Second, cream gold cracked, revealing pale gold dragon with horns of pearl. Viserion. Third, green copper birthed scaled emerald. Regal. Day. They crawled upon Daenerys' shoulders, keening. The Khalasar fell prostrate. Fire burned, but did not consume her hair, though ends gleamed like bronze wire. She stared into horizon where sea glimmered faint, as though expecting sails. That same instant, on Blood Ruby's deck, Janos doubled over as a spear of heat shot through chest. He staggered, gasping, seeing through alien eyes. Desert night, 3 hatchlings, her face illuminated by flame. Connection lurched like sudden tide. He tasted ash, salt, and tears. He straightened, whispering, "She has done it." Sailors gaped as frosted breath rolled from his mouth, though the air remained warm. The balance of ice and fire tightened inside him. He turned to Xaro. "Course due east to Meereen, then upriver. We waste no dawn, and no one." At Winterfell, the eggshell embers in Godswood crowned again. Winterflame lifted snout, sensing siblings hatched. Snowbane answered with crystalline warble. Bran, dreaming beneath the heart tree, saw vision of desert birth. He woke speechless, racing to tell Maester Luwin. 3 more. The song rose fourfold. Ned listened, then strode to Solar, quill-scratching parchment to Dragonstone watchers and Northmen allies. The Targaryen flame reborn. A just council. 2 heads of dragon become 4. If realm is to stand, North must unite with Fireborn or be buried in night. And around, the Dreadfort's towers emerged from snow squall like fangs. Robb Stark led vanguard, gray wind streaking ahead. Cyclopean gates flared red under torchlight. Rams pounded, Crannog nets scaled walls, and above all thundered dragons. Winterflame alight with wildfire green residue from bolted vats, Snowbane trailing shards of ice like stars. The sky looked a tapestry of swirling steam. Inside, Roose Bolton knelt before great hearth, reading missive from unknown hand. "Join us or perish in your own crypt." He smiled thin. "One flay flays many," he whispered, rising. He donned weirwood white armor, embossed with crimson man. Around him, cockroach-skinned maesters strapped blades fashioned of black ice. Sorcery seeped from their seams, candles froze. The siege slammed outer ward. Yet before stones cracked, the gate opened on its own. Roose stepped out, flanked by knights with blue flame eyes. "Welcome, Wolf," he called to Robb. "Come learn Howl of Agony." Robb raised Frostfall, but Winterflame shrieked above, diving. Roose extended hand. Spear of ice coalesced mid-air. He cast it. Dragon banked, spear grazing wing, freezing trailing edge. Winterflame faltered. Benjen on Snowbane dove opposite flank, unleashing sonic cry that splintered ramparts. Cracks spidered up tower face. Bolton knights staggered. On ground, Reed Bogman surged, hurling obsidian javelins. Each hit Bolton sorcerer, bodies shattering into shards of hoarfrost. Roose advanced untouched, uncannily swift. He reached Cranagman rank, blade flickering. Men collapsed silent, blood icing on ground. Robb and Grey Wind charged. Bolton met them, sword cloaked in mist, parrying direwolf snap with impossible dexterity. Robb's blade clanged, metal singing under frost. Close they danced, heat of fury meeting vacuum of death. In that clash Bran's raven landed upon broken parapet, eyes gone white. Through Warg's sight, he guided Winterflame, focusing heartbeat to quell pain. Dragon steadied, inflamed membrane incandescent, melting ice, encrusting. It reared, inhaled deep. Bran urged flame, but not red. He felt new spectrum birthed at Desert Pyre. A white-hot jet, hotter than any yet breathed, lanced downward. Roose sensed, leapt aside, cloak crisping. Stone beneath vaporized, leaving glowing pool that cooled glassy. Snowbane landed behind Bolton, tail-smashing Mason's stare. Robb pressed. Roose's eyes flickered unnatural pale. Some borrowed power dimming. He spun to meet Dragon, but too late. Snowbane's frost breath enveloped him. His armor, crafted to channel cold, absorbed blast, but cracked under inner strain. Simultaneously Winterflame unleashed second jet from other side. Heat met cold. Armor shards exploded outward, shearing his flesh. Roose screamed only once before torso evaporated into crimson steam. Bolton banners dropped. Remaining men cast weapons, raising hands. Crannog nets bound them. Robb exhaled, sweat freezing on brow. Grey Wind raised muzzle, in long howl, answered by wolves across Dreadwood. Ned entered courtyard, sword ice glowing faint amber from dragon heat. He looked upon smoldering ruin of Bolton Lord, then knelt to respect lost northern blood. Rising, he declared, Dreadfort is dissolved. Lands and titles forfeit to those who kept faith. Cheer rose, yet Ned's mind cast further, south to Riverlands, to King's Landing trembling. Dragon's sword now not one but four, and ghosts in ice walk. To save realm, alliances would need forging beyond birthright. He thought of Jon, of Daenerys, the children of fire, and of one. On Blood Ruby's deck, the horizon bled pink as Meereen's pyramids pierced dawn. Ships of Qarth tightened formation. Janos readied armor, black brigandine scaled in dull rubies, cloak the hue of northern ash. At his throat he clasped tiny banner of direwolf and ember. He addressed captains, "We land, treat with the Khaleesi. Any slave chain within our sight we shatter. Any master who resists answers to flame." Cheers answered. Many crew were freedmen purchased by Xaro with promise of wages. Galleys entered Skahazadon river mouth. Fires burned along wharfs. Civil unrest within Meereen, slaves revolting. Janos took longboat ashore. Slipping through chaos. Up the broad stair lined with broken harpy statues he ascended. Dragonglass dagger in one hand, hope in the other. In the plaza before Great Pyramid, corpses of master class sprawled. Atop dais stood Daenerys, bronze hair whipping, dragons perched. Drogon larger by hour, Viserion and Rhaegal circling. She saw him mount final step, and stilled. Time folded. They approached. wary joy in every stride. He bowed low. "Khaleesi," he breathed. She touched his cheek. "Blood of my blood," she murmured in Valyrian. "I dreamed you would come on a tide of rubies." "I come with promise," he said. "North burns with frozen foe. We join or night claims all." She glanced skyward, where dragons hovered. "Then let dawn ride our wings." Behind them, freed slaves chanted Misa dot dot. Qartheen marines raised trade sigils. Far out in bay, the comet faded with sunrise, yet its ghost lingered, scarlet across pale blue, reminder of covenant. Oh. At Winterfell, Bran within Godswood listened as Weirwood whispered. Two flames converge. When they touch, forge Lightbringer. The boy could not grasp all images the trees spilled. Blades of morning, icy crowns dissolved. Fields of spring blooming where snow once lay. But he sensed hope. He opened eyes to see Arya practicing footwork with spear carved of dragon glass. Sansa instructing carpenters, shaping new wings for raven cages. Rickon feeding both dragons ox haunch. The north pulsed with purpose. 7 weeks later, Kingsmoot of Banners convened at Moat Cailin. Torches lined ancient stone causeway. At its heart, under sky of storm opal swirling, assembly of Northmen, Riverlords, and Ironborn, heard petition of dragons. From east arrived fleet of Qarth, black and silver sails, bearing Daenerys, Janos, and their scaled brood. From north landed Winterflame and Snowbane, carrying Ned, Robb, and Benjen. When dragons alighted, 4 roars merged. Fire, frost, sunlit gold, and emerald wind. Fear rippled, then awe. Ned stepped forward, ice sheathed. He lifted great voice. Long have houses warred for chair of swords. But now darkness marches. I ask oaths not to a crown but to life itself. Follow banner of wolf and dragon entwined. Follow heat that melts ice whites to steam. Follow cold that tempers flames. Together we break night. Thou win. Daenerys advanced, bare feet upon mossy stones. She held Drogon's scaled neck. I was born of storm, yet storm could not drown me. I bring freedom for chains, but I cannot win alone. Stand with us, and when white shadows fall, the dawn will know your names. Murmurs. Then Lady Mage Mormont stepped from ranks, breastplate dented. Bear Island fights for the north, for wolves, and for dragons, if they burn bright. She knelt, fist-pounding chest. One by one, others followed. Reed, Glover, Mallister. Even Asha Greyjoy bowed, blades crossed. Bannermen roared assent. Fires lit as rain began, hissing vapor. Above, 4 dragons wreathed in lightning flew formation. A cross of living hope scorching clouds. In that forging, Janos and Daenerys clasped hands. He felt the scar from Bolton quarrel reopened by fate. She felt widow's ache softened. They exchanged whispers lost to wind. Promise me warmth. Promise me winter's courage. Beyond horizon, Night King stirred. Sensing union he long feared. He marshaled legions of frost, yet found first cracks in certainty. The great host began its march south toward Trident, where Lannister gold and Baratheon thunder readied. Across continents, priests of R'hllor beheld visions. Sword of burning frost, crown of melted steel, tears of joy on field of red grass. Maesters in Old Town recorded strange variations in seasonal cycles. And the comet, though gone from sight, left iron memory across hearts of men. A sign that choice had closed, destiny unveiled. Wolves braced, dragons soared, ice moaned, and the world inhaled before roar of mingled flame and snow. So began the war for Dawn's balance, when promises made beneath stormed portcullis of Dragonstone bore fruit in Dragon's Four, when the North's heart melded with Valyrian fire, and every oath kept, broken or reborn, marched beside them into history unwritten. K. Wet thunder sagged above Moat Cailin's crooked towers, and the air tasted of iron. storm water mingled with old blood still clinging to moss stones. Campfires blazed in thousands, their smoke forming low black constellations across the next flooded earth. Wolves howled, horses stamped, and the 4 dragons passed overhead like living stars, their wing beats setting tents to flutter as though the very fabric of war trembled. The High Command convened under a canvas pavilion stitched from gray northern wool and pale Carthene silk. Inside, maps covered a trestle table, parchments inked by Maester Lewin's steady quill, by Zaro's scented scribes, by Yunkish cartographers enslaved and freed. Candles guttered in the drafts that found every seam. Flames bowed each time Winterflame roared far above. Ned Stark and Daenerys stood at opposite ends, eyes locked on the Riverland's twisting arteries. Yonos took the space between, one hand on the pommel of his Braavosi longsword, the other resting over the direwolf Andamber banner, still knotted to his forearm. Robb traced a gloved finger from Deepwood Motte southward. "We strike the twins first. Walder Frey feigns neutrality, but his sons ride for Lannister gold." Luis Piper shook his head. "Even traitors guard their bridges. The Freys hold 5,000 men, and every approach mired in marsh." "Ben?" Benjen's voice, rough with knights at the wall, cut through. "The ice moves faster than armies. If we tarry at Frey gates, the dead will march past our flanks. Take the twins by dragon, lift portcullises from within, and let the host thunder through." "Burn the twins?" Robb asked. "Breach," Benjen clarified. "Stone may fall, but river will still flow." Frey pride smolders quicker than his towers. Daenerys' eyes flicked to Ned. "Fire can open gates, but fear can close hearts. We must leave safe crossing for small folk fleeing north when the cold comes." "Now." Ned inclined his head. "Then Winterflame flies at dawn. No full blaze, only enough to blacken the ironwood doors. Once Frey sees a dragon's shadow, he may discover sudden loyalty." Across the table, Davos Seaworth, fresh from smuggling northern grain into starving Gulltown, prodded the grain routes on the map. The Stormlands remained split. Lord Renly died years before his time in this turn of events. The Storm's End now swears half to Lord Stannis, half to Queen Cersei's boy king. Yet, if we break chains in the Reach, bread will follow banners. Dendi. Arya, standing beside Grey Wind's great silent shape, grinned a predator's grin. Her hair was wind-tangled, and on her hip hung needle and a new Valyrian steel dirk, gifted by Daenerys herself. "Break chains? Good word. I'll carve it in Lannister walls." Sansa, towering in resolute calm, wore a gown of midnight wool shot through with crimson thread. "The Lannisters spin fear into gold. We must spin hope into iron. Let ravens precede us, promises of harvest saved, of freedom from tithes. Reach lords will weigh grain heavier than pride." "Davos, you sound half Tyrell," Arya muttered. Sansa only lifted her chin. "Someone must outgarden the roses." Lewin cleared his throat. "With your permission, my lords and ladies, I have counted stores. If Essosi fleets deliver saltfish and dried olives as pledged, we feed 2 moons of marching. After that, our fortune rides on southern fields not yet sown." Daenerys laid a hand atop the maps. "My unsullied safeguard good seed in Astapor granaries. 10 ships sail now. Holds low in the waves. They will anchor at White Harbor with tides turn." Her gaze hardened, and the dragons circling above gave answering cries. "No army starves while my sons breathe." Robb rolled his shoulders. "Then let us breathe war down the Trident." He looked to Jon. "Brother, march with a vanguard." Jon answered, soft but sure. "Drogon and I will open the rivers. Rhaegal and Viserion carry scouts. Winterflame breaks siegeworks if they rise, and Snowbane watches our rear." He glanced to his father. "The living must march like water, always seeking lowest ground, never stopping until ocean meets us." Ned thought of the weirwood whisper that Bran had brought. "When fire meets ice, Lightbringer forges." He nodded. "So flows the north." Dawn cracked glassy over the causeway. Winterflame's wings beat first, stirring fog that clung to reeds like spectral hands. Bran watched from the tower top, eyes gone white. Through the dragon's vision he tasted the mist. Sharp, briny, tinted with copper smoke drifting from campfires. He guided his cousin dragon low, sunlight flashing off embered scales. At the edge of the mists, Walder Frey's stone towers jutted above the green fork, banners limp in still air. Winterflame loosed a single line of molten fire drawn along the wooden drawbridge. Planks hissed, iron fittings glowed orange, yet the beam did not collapse. Bran had adjusted the force with the calm of one who reads hearts of trees. Flames licked high enough to silhouette the twins' ramparts in terrifying halo. Frey guards scrambled, dropping pikes, some leaping into the river in blind panic. Jon and Daenerys, astride Drogon, circled wide. Inside the near tower, the portcullis groaned upward before steel even touched it. Old Walder himself tottered onto the walk above, wheezing surrender. No quarrel, no quarrel. Frey's kneel. His voice cracked across river waters. Behind him, sons and grandsons scurried to emulate obeisance. By dusk, the northern host poured through. Sir Brynden Tully, the Blackfish, took garrison command, posting archers along the parapets, but none aimed north. All eyes scanned southern river bend where specks of Lannister outriders watched dragon silhouettes slice the sky. The march resumed. Rainstorm shadows gathered overhead, but no thunder fell. The sky seemed to hold its breath. Under banners of dire wolf and dragon entwined, pikemen from White Harbor, crannogmen with frogged spear, Carthene crossbowmen in lacquered masks, an army unlike any Westeros had seen, tramped the muddy road south. Somewhere among their ranks, Gendry Waters, formerly Smith's apprentice, now sworn Baratheon in all but name, pushed a wagon bearing newly forged dragonglass spearheads. Beside him stomped Hot Pie, wielding nothing sharper than his ladle, but ready to feed 15,000 with barley-steeped broth. In King's Landing, Queen Cersei stood upon the rampart of the Red Keep, staring northward under a sky bruised by thin storm clouds and comet ghost. Behind her, the Iron Throne chamber thrummed with uneasy courtiers. Pycelle's successor, Maester Pardos, murmured of grain shortages, of Tyrell caravans turned back at the Mander by rebel hands, of gold god coffers near Hollow. Cersei silenced him with a flick of her hand and returned to her vigil. A hush fell when Qyburn approached, robes rustling. He bowed. "The sky darkens with wings, your grace. My little birds whisper of four, one black as pit coal, one red as glowing steel, one pale as milky glass, one green as summer's dew, and rumors of a fifth of ice. Spare me tales of snow." Cersei snapped. "Can they breach these walls? Wildfire lies beneath every street. A single spark ignites doom for all. Yet we wield the spark, not they. And if their frost dragon freezes the rivers of wildfire in our veins..." Qyburn paled. "Perhaps reinforce the Alchemist Guild with every brazier of the faith, if the High Septon will oblige." Cersei's lip curled. "The High Septon obeys or he burns first." She stared at the smoke wafting upward from slums beyond the Gate of the Gods. Shacks torn down to widen killing fields. She clenched hands. "Let Starks and Targaryens twist around each other. My arrows shall find crevices in their coil." Across Riverland's farms now stripped of grain, Jaime Lannister commanded the rear guard of a Lannister. Tyrell alliance still unsteady from Margaery's death, 2 winters past. Sir Bronn stood at his side, squinting at vulture-circled skies. "You smell that, Kingslayer?" Bronn asked as rain began pattering on steel. "Wet wolf." Jaime flexed his golden hand. "Wolves don't fly. Whatever rides that wind is older than wolves." Thunder boomed, too deep for storm clouds. Drogon and Viserion descended in spiral, flames streaking like comets. Jaime turned his stallion, calling the retreat trumpet before first ash fell. Behind him, infantry lines crumbled into screaming rout. But not all men fled. Sir Bronn knocked a scorpion bolt already tipped with dragonglass stolen from Casterly storehouse. He waited, aim steady. As Drogon skimmed the treetops torching siege wagons, Bronn loosed. The bolt hissed true, striking scales near joint of wing. Drogon roared, banking hard. Jon clung but retained seat. Daenerys' command cry echoed. The dragon climbed, leaking a stream of dark ichor. Jaime watched that black fire against bruised sky, and found strange ache twist through his chest. Neither triumph nor pity, but something between, like the moment before dawn, when night relents but light has not yet claimed ground. At camp, Daenerys pressed healing balm to Drogon's wound. Jon's face was drawn. "Scorpion bolts forged from obsidian," he muttered. "How did they learn?" Daenerys dabbed cloth. Her eyes molten. "Traders carry secrets same as gold, but our scales grow harder." She looked up at him, lips set. "Promise me, you will not dive at wagons without my call." He tried to smile. "And you promise me you will not ride with Aerostorm between us." She kissed his brow. Above, Winterflame and Snowbane circled, keeping vigil. Rhaegal swooped low, chuffing in concern for his wounded brother. Drogon flicked, forked tongue in defiance of pain. The fourth dragon, Viserion, watched mist from heat fissures that rose where obsidian splinters had sizzled. In that breath, Jon knew. Each injury taught their flesh new strengths. Dragonbone knitting denser, scales darkening where bolts struck. Fire learned, ice learned. But did men? Night blanketed the riverlands. Campfires dotted floodplain like a second starfield. In Ned's command tent, Bran pored over charcoal sketches drawn in his trance. Sigils melded, lion fading, rose charred, seven-pointed star cracked, blue-dyed face crowned in ragged frost. He handed them to his father. "Walls fall," Bran whispered. "King's Landing burns or freezes unless Sword of Dawn bright as memory is forged between you." Ned studied sketches. Lightbringer. He remembered tales of Azor Ahai. Sword-tempered. In Nissa's heart. He looked at Jon and Daenerys conferring near Brazier, silhouettes melding in flickers of orange. He wondered which heart must break for Sword to rise, and whether fate meant to break his children again. He felt Catelyn's hand slip into his. She had traveled with healers, tending wounded. Dirt smudged her cheeks, yet her eyes remained river-clear. He asks burden heavy. She murmured, "But you carry many." He squeezed her fingers. "This burden is iron. Only dragons can melt." She drew him outside to see the dragons roosting. Winterflame curled around blackened tree trunk. Snowbane nested on frosted boulder. Drogon resting on forearms like a cat still ready to spring. Dragons smaller perched along earthworks. Above, the comet's ghost faded, but their scales captured its memory in every sheen. All at once, Bran gasped, as ward visions pierced his waking sight. Flames rose along the wall, blue not red. A dragon of night? Viserion? No, impossible. This creature bore scales like ancient ice, translucent ribs glowing pale. It slammed frost wings against Castle Blackstone, shattering parapets. And behind it, the Night King rode, spear of crystal in hand. Bran's cry brought the commanders running. He described what he'd seen. Benjen's face blanched. "Istwatch by the sea falls," Benjen said. "The dead breach at last. We anchor armies in south, but undead march west along coasts now." Jon's heart hammered. "We cannot split. If we wheel north, Lannister knives gut our rear. If we press south, dead storm from shore." He looked at Ned and Daenerys. "We need one blow strong enough to cut war in half." Daenerys' gaze turned remote, as when she communed with hatchling dreams. Aegon the Conqueror forged 7 kingdoms in a single day of dragonfire at Harrenhal. She said quietly, "We must forge one kingdom of living in same stroke. King's Landing is the realm's heart. If it beats for us, lion banners fall, and all swords point north." Ned exhaled slow. "Take the capital," he said, as if tasting impossible fruit. "End civil strife with a blaze so bright even the dead blink." "How?" "Not with siege," Jon said. "With spectacle." His eyes glinted. "Bring dragons above the city walls at noon. Call out Cersei to parley. When wildfire stockpiles threaten to immolate half the realm, Snowbane freezes vaults, Winterflame boils aqueducts to flood pyromancer caches. Viserion and Rhaegal herd panicked gold cloaks away from innocents. Drogon lands upon the Red Keep itself. He looked at Daenerys. "Your throne," briefly. Daenerys' breath caught. "Light in darkness," she whispered. "If I sit to promise life, not rule." Sansa stepped forward, voice calm but steel-edged. "Then proclaim a regency of the living." Cersei removed, her son fostered under Stark Targaryen guardianship, small council drawn from every house still loyal. King's Landing opens granaries to feed Riverlands, and the Night King finds only one banner before him. Arya's grin spread. And what of Cersei? Ned's gaze turned flint. Trial. Let people weigh her wildfire plots. If guilty, sentence not by flame, but by ice. Show realm justice that does not burn them with it. Nenanderol. Preparations flew. Ravens winged south carrying sealed scrolls penned by Sansa, bearing wolf and dragon wax. Within days, whispers reached King's Landing. Parley at high sun. Dragon tide. Fear chewed the city. The host marched along the King's Road, banners unfurling in warm spring gusts. Alongside infantry rolled black wagons wrapped in burlap. Inside, stacks of dragonglass spears and arrowheads glinting, ready for northern war. Each dawn, Bran's ravens brought word of dead armies sweeping along coastal cliffs. Eastwatch burned, yet the living pressed south. At Maidenpool, they found gates open, commons cheering dragons overhead. Lord Mooton bent knee, providing casks of pickled herring and lime to stave scurvy. In fields beyond, Arya trained orphans in spear thrust. Nearby, Tyrion Lannister, having fled Sister's paranoia disguised in scepter robes, appeared at camp with bronze helm under arm. Grey Wind sniffed, but did not bite. Tyrion requested audience with Jon and Daenerys. "I am debt-tridden imp of a house, no longer lion but skulking cat," he began. "Yet I know King's Landing's dry channels better than bowels of my own gut. If wildfire lines every tunnel, one misfire of dragonflame, and we bathe whole capital in green devils, you need a rat to gnaw fuses." Jon studied him. "Why betray your blood?" Tyrion's smile did not reach eyes. "Blood betrayed me long ago. I choose breath." Daenerys' extended hand. "Serve Dawn." Tyrion bowed. Noon sun blazed upon King's Landing 2 weeks hence. Bells rang frantic, signaling arrival of forces greater than any since Robert's rebellion. The dragons appeared first, silhouettes against harsh blue. Small folk flooded streets, pressing to windows. On ramparts, crossbows lined like porcupine quills. But fire danced uneasy in men's hearts when they felt the downdraft of wings. Winterflame hovered above the dragon pit ruins, heat turning dust to shimmering haze. Snowbane glided over the Blackwater, exhaling icy vanity across muddy tide, freezing it to mottled sheen within seconds. Rhaegal and Viserion spiraled the great sept of Baelor, wings folding just shy of ancient statues. Their shadows turned Tyrell roses painted on paving stones into talons of green and gold. Finally, Drogon descended upon the Red Keep's highest courtyard. His claws cracked marble. Jon dismounted first, cloak snapping in the wind, long hair half-silver, under Dragonfire's glow. He turned, offering arm. Daenerys stepped down, clad in scaled black armor trimmed with copper. No crown. Behind her, unsullied spearmen filed in, helms polished like obsidian. Cersei emerged onto balcony flanked by Qyburn, Mountain, and boy King Tommen, trembling behind lion helm too heavy for his neck. Green wildfire torches flickered along balustrade like sickly candles. Tyrion appeared beside Daenerys, raising voice amplified by the Red Keep stone. "Queen Cersei of House Lannister. By the will of the united North and free cities, you stand charged with treason against the realm of living, harding fire to incinerate your own. Stand forth to parley, or stand down forever." Cersei's laugh wafted shrill. "Parley? Child's play. I hold fuse in hand. One spark and dragon, wolf, and traitor rat burn alike." She raised crucible, wildfire sloshing. Snowbane shrieked. A lance of supercooled breath shot upward, slamming the crucible. Green liquid crystallized instantly. Frost racing up Cersei's arm. She screamed, dropping chunk that shattered into emerald shards. Wildfire torches winked dead as Winterflame unleashed heat down sewage culverts, boiling excess fluid to inert vapor. Tyrion's agents below severed braided fuses, with swift knives. The mountain lumbered forward, but gray wind leaped from hidden archway, sinking fangs into necrotic flesh through armor gaps. Arya vaulted railing, Valyrian dirk hissing. With 2 precise thrusts, she severed tubes feeding whatever alchemy sustained monstrous life. The mountain collapsed, leaking ichor. Qyburn fled, but unsullied truncheons ended his scurry. Cersei staggered, frost-bitten, cornered. Ned Stark entered courtyard through gate below, ice resting against his shoulder. Wordless, he sent her a look colder than Snowbane's breath. Golden Company mercenaries. Seeing Wildfire neutralized and Lion Queen disarmed, laid down spears in clatter that echoed down Aegon's high hill, Tommen removed helm, tears streaking soot. Sansa stepped forward, gathering him gently, turning him to face the crowd gathering in courtyard. Nobles, knights, stable boys. The realm does not need fear to rule, she told them, voice carrying. The realm needs hope. She kissed Tommen's brow. Hope stands with us. Around them, the Red Keep gates opened. Small folk poured across the city, joining chant that rose like surf. Dragon and wolf, dawn and hope, life and peace. In their center, Cersei slumped, gaze darting for escape, finding none. Daenerys addressed the throng. No throne today. She said, voice ringing. We form a council of 9. Each kingdom 1 seat, plus seat for free cities and another for faiths. The boy Tommen sits as witness of unity, not ruler. Until the night is slain, War of Crowns is ended. Cheers shook crenellations. Ned knelt, presenting eyes. The North stands free, but stands with realm. My sword for the living, don't you? Daenerys touched the blade, then raised Jon's hand. Together. That night, in the throne room stripped of cushions and banners, stalwart representatives signed the Pact of Light. Ned for North, Brienne for Stormlands, Olenna Tyrell for Reach return from her exile, Davos for Crownlands fishermen, Asha for Ironborn, Prince Doran for Dorne via Raven, Varys himself signing for free cities as secret envoy, the High Septon for Fate. Tyrion dipped quill last. They sealed scroll with wax bearing merged sigil. Direwolf encircling 3-headed dragon, intertwined with weirwood bough. Meanwhile, outside city walls, wagons of dragonglass reached port. Smiths toiled by dragon heat, forging arrowheads by 1,000. Rhaegal's breath melted sand to clear glass to be ground into lenses for signaling north at night. Bran sat in tower cell, overlooking Blackwater. He closed his eyes and slipped into ravens flying over eastern cliffs. He saw waves, black as ink frozen in crests beneath wings of ice dragon, leading an army of silence. But he also felt new tremor. Torches traveling along King's Road from south. Dothraki outriders galloping. Greyjoy sails cutting narrow sea east to west. Dornish spearmen crossing Prince's Pass. All answering call of dawn. 14 days later, the army of the living deployed from King's Landing northward. A river of steel and conviction. Dragons wheeled overhead. Jon and Daenerys rode together at Column's Head. Drogon no longer limping. His wound had crusted into scale harder than black iron. Behind them rolled carts laden with bread, dried fish, and hope. Tommen watched from battlement, candle in hand, as storm clouds parted to reveal pale dawn. North of the neck, snows thickened. In the haunted forest, the Night King's lieutenants drove their thralls south, cracking ice whips. But wherever winter advanced, small folk saw sky burn nightly with dragon patrol, and they found courage again. On road's edge, 2 children herded goats. They stared as procession passed. Direwolves padding, unsullied helmets gleaming. Swords rang, and banners snapped, but above all soared the dragons, their shadows stitching the earth with promise. The boy raised fist. The girl copied. And far away, on a glacial plateau, the Night King paused, spear raised to sigil sky. For the first time since time forgot, his head tilted, as though listening to distant music. The steady heartbeat of united realms. Ice cracked underfoot. He understood the war of night would not be waged merely in cold silence, but in inferno bright as first dawn. He lowered spear. White dragon roared, breath swirling cosmos of frost. And the armies of night resumed their march, toward a line of fire they had never met, toward 4 dragons ringed by men and women who no longer feared dying, for they had chosen to live fiercely, in one banner, in one name. Light. The world held its breath. The snow fell. And somewhere, as final campfires of evening sparked across King's Road like reversed sky, a smith lifted the first blade forged of Valerian steel folded with dragon glass, its edge shimmering sunset hues. They named it Daybreak. Died. Its point aimed north. War for dawn would soon begin.